Hey guys, welcome to another live show, another live She Knows Arsenal. Make sure you guys are liking the video and subscribing to the channel, and most importantly, getting into the chat and letting me know what you guys are thinking about the conversation that we're going to have today. What that conversation is really going to be, I don't know, because there's not that much to talk about. We will talk about Mikel's press conference, but in terms of like actual news, not so much. Not so much. We are still at a standstill waiting on this Gyokeres stuff, and to be honest, like I've been over it, you know. I've actually been over it for a while now. It's taking a really long time, but I do think that I'm also like tired of looking for clues and who is he following and is that his plane and oh, Sporting are about to sign their new striker. Just let me know when he's announced, man. Like, it's just wild how long it's taking. And I'd said over the weekend that, you know, I'm a little disappointed that there's no new attackers on the tour. Shoot me. I'm a little disappointed, you know? We're going to be watching same attackers that we did last season, minus Sterling. So I guess that's a plus. But, going into preseason, I had fully anticipated us having at least two attackers in ready to kind of go. And we don't have that. Now, the circumstances are, the context around that is one thing, but no matter what the context is, there's still a level of disappointment there, right? Of course, I got shit on the timeline, totally annihilated for saying that I was even disappointed because well, how could you be disappointed? It's not Arsenal's fault. And I'm like, yeah, but something cannot be somebody's fault. Like, case in point, me and my best friend drove to Vegas from LA to go to a concert that we had waited for we bought the tickets maybe like 6 months out. And so we had planned all this stuff and like it's like a 4-hour drive, drove all the way over there. The concert was the next day after we got there. And at about 10 p.m. that night, before they put up an Instagram like message, like Instagram like post saying that it was canceled. Now, is that our fault? No, it's not our fault. Did that stop there from being disappointment? No, I was still disappointed. And so I feel like there's this thing where you can't say anything that's not innately positive or else you're just like demonized. But you guys know how I am. I'm never going to pretend I don't feel some certain type of way or not, you know, be honest about how I feel because I'm afraid that people are going to be mad about what I'm saying. As I'm too old to be scared of Arsenal fans being mad at me. I don't really give a fuck. So yeah, it's a little bit disappointing. You see the 30-man list come out and there's nothing, nothing really new there outside of really Zubamendi. Like, I'm going to be really, really honest here that like, I get that we have signings in, but like, who's really like gassed to watch Kepa? And Norgard will probably be like a sneaker, like kind of good signing. Like, I think he'll do well, but he's still like a backup DM. So I think it's okay to be a little bit disappointed, whether the context around it is Arsenal's fault or not. I really do think this Gyokeres thing is mostly a pissing contest between Gyokeres' agent and the president of Sporting. And we're kind of in the crosshairs. Now, do we have something that we could do in order to smooth things over and get it done quickly? Yes. Yes. If we really wanted this to be over, we could, end this and just kind of give them what they want in terms of the add-ons and move on. But Arsenal don't pay for convenience unless it's a Chelsea player, and what I mean by that is they'll go to Chelsea and buy their players because it's convenient because Chelsea will give us good terms. But if it's a player outside of Chelsea and we're only going to kind of smooth things over by, maybe giving them a little bit of what they want, we don't really do that often. It's usually why our deals take so long is because we're almost happy to sit there and like him and haw over the minute details. And to a certain extent, I do understand that because you don't want it adding up. Like if you do that for every single signing, then it adds up. But if you're doing that for every signing, but then you have this one that's really important that you desperately need in preseason so you can learn the system and all that kind of stuff, per Mikel's request. This is not me saying that we need to have him in preseason. Arteta made that pretty clear that he wanted him in preseason for the Asia tour. So, if you could do something to smooth this over and get it done quicker, you could, but you're not, So even though I do feel like this is mostly Sporting just being unrelenting and a little bit childish, I do think that we could take it upon ourselves just to kind of like end it, but we don't want to. And so I don't really know what it's going to take for this deal to get over the line. It does kind of feel like it's going to take a little bit longer than we expected, but hopefully we get a swift conclusion. And that's why, I want to talk about Mikel's um, presser, because he had kind of hinted oddly, that maybe he's confirming the Gyokeres signing. So we'll talk about that. And then he also mentioned that maybe we need some more signings because of our lack of numbers. So I want to talk to you guys about that for sure. Vig says, where's my left winger, phase 6? I don't want to see Martinelli or Trossard. You can say it, Jess. This man are D-heads. I'm not going to say all that. Michael says, I think they don't even register that we wait, sorry, I didn't read that we need more quality players that will actually help the club. Like, do they actually see that? You're talking to Saida. Harrison said, did you learn to clickbait from Terry? No, I didn't clickbait. It's just you're impatient. And because I didn't give you all the information in the first, I don't know, we've been on here for 10 minutes. You think it's clickbait because I haven't gotten to the point where Arteta did talk about confirming the Gyokeres signing. So no, Harrison, nobody clickbaited you. Ask yourself this: if Sesko is 65 million, would he be on tour? I'm starting to question Mikel and the transfer team. I don't know. I don't really know, what's really going on and what, because, it's just a hypothetical, but I do think that there's a reluctance to go any further for the Gyokeres thing because maybe he's not a number one, he's not a number one signing. So I don't see this whole, Chelsea going for Xavi Simons, or it's looking that way. I don't see the report. So maybe you guys can, turn that towards me so I can see. But I never really thought that Xavi Simons was our number one option. I think maybe they used us to get it done or whatever. Oh yeah, has opened the door for Chelsea, direct talks. So if we do go get somebody, it'll be Eze, which was our number one option, but that's a good signing for them. Again, you can sign multiple top players in attack in one window. We're the only club that seems to really struggle. Fabrizio says Arsenal remain also keen, but Gyokeres and outgoings are the priority. And so that's a little bit of a worry that he's saying that we need, what's it called? That we need outgoings, which we kind of talked about before. That we kind of talked about this before, that if we're at the outgoing stage, it's going to be, it's going to be tough for us to get other signings in. So, yeah. Simmons to Chelsea. I can't handle losing him. Damn, no attackers on tour is rough at Arsenal Football Club. We're literally still waiting on Gyokeres. So, and Nani has to go, and rest, but we're not going to get another attacker until we sell. That's genuinely how I feel. I think that we're going to need to actually move on Trossard or somebody to get this done. Arsenal do this thing where they kind of pretend like we don't need to sell, but they're acting as though we need to sell, meaning like we've been preparing to approach Crystal Palace for about 3 weeks now. And so even though they're saying that, we're preparing to approach and Eze is our primary target, if we were actually pursuing him in a real way and he wasn't just on our list, we would have already spoken to Crystal Palace. And we haven't yet. And so that, even though they're saying that, oh, Arsenal are going after Eze and, they don't necessarily they only need to sell for the left wing, it's pretty clear that we need to sell. To me, it's pretty clear that we need to sell before we can get Eze. Otherwise, they would already be doing it. And I think what's probably happened is we spoke to Crystal Palace and they said, we want the release clause. And so, yeah, it's tough. And all of the links to our players leaving have magically vanished, which usually happens around this time once they figure out that they don't want to pay our wages. So it's tough. It really, really is. And we're going to have to probably wait this out. But yeah, if they wanted to get Eze, they would have gotten him already. They would have went straight to Crystal Palace and started negotiations. They can do multiple things at once, like we did before. We were in talks for Mascara and striker and Madueke at the same time. There's nothing stopping them from doing it outside of the fact that they want to sell first. Whatever Arsenal had for a budget has probably already been spent. So there we go. Selling might not be because of the cost, but because we need to reduce the wages and the number of players in the locker room. It's interesting because Arteta said in his press conference that we were short on numbers. So, yeah, he said we're short on numbers. So I don't know if it's about players in the locker room either, I don't know if it's players in the locker room. I think we're short on quality, like you're saying, Marco. It's not about the amount of players that we have. We have a lot of players. Like we have 30 players on this tour. So it's not like we're scrapping for numbers. It's a quality issue. And I know Arteta said, in his press conference earlier today that we were short on numbers. And I'm like, these are kind of like the exact same things you were saying going into last season. And we know what happened. And so knowing how the Cronkies are super tight and how they want us to be a sustainable club and Arteta is trying to beg for more money, this is a twofold situation. It's, of course, we need more money and the Cronkies should be giving more. Whatever they have spent so far has been nowhere near enough to compete. Other teams are buying, I want to say, is this not Chelsea's fourth attacker in this window? We haven't even gotten 2 over the line yet. And it doesn't look like a third one is going to be sanctioned easily. They need to give more money. And even if that just means we can still pay the same amount for Eze, but they actually give us the money to do the release clause up front, and then we have to pay it back or whatever, just do that. Just do that, because at this stage, if we need to sell in order to get Eze, we might as well just not even try. We're going to struggle to sell every single one of the players from now until the end of the window. So KSC definitely don't care enough to make us competitive on the pitch. They want it to be sustainable while they collect the money that we make from Champions League and shit, right? So then there's the other side of things where, because people were like, oh, so see, this isn't Arteta trying to stop us from getting transfers in. He's actually trying to force the Cronkies' hand. I'm like, hold on now. Just because Arteta is asking for more money doesn't mean that he's not culpable for buying Nani first. It's buying Nani first, buying Havertz, buying Marino, buying players that make you different, but don't necessarily make you better, don't lift the levels, are players that we're going to have to rebuy in those positions in coming windows because, they haven't done anything or made us any better, is another reason why you have to beg for more money. It's twofold. It's not, to me, it's not just about, of course, Arteta wants more money. Of course he does. He wants more money because we're nowhere near it. But equally, when you know that you're not going to get a big budget, everything that you spend is so important. And so if you go out there and you spend the 50 million on Nani and then the rest of the window you have to sell, it's kind of like, you set yourself up. And again, before somebody says it wasn't Arteta, of course, like he pushed for the signing. There's many, many reports saying that he pushed for the signing. So we don't need to do the disingenuous, yeah, but how do you know? He pushed for the signing of Nani Madueke. So, I'm you know, just saying that our our rivals are improving their teams at a rapid rate with many players coming in this window, and we stood still last summer, but we still need to sell to buy a, a left winger or an attacking mid, and we just never needed a right winger as much as we needed any of those things. So it's just a strange way that we've done things, and we always get to this point in the window where they start to lower the expectations from, okay, well, we can get Eze without needing to sell. Now you're starting to see, like Fabrizio, outgoings and Gyokeres are the focus and priority. He didn't even mention Eze. So we're at the standstill stage now. And I don't even really understand why we're still doing the Gyokeres thing. He really should be on this tour. It's really taking incredibly too long. And at this stage, it would just be better for maybe Arsenal just to concede a little bit and just give Sporting what they want so that we can move on. You have a really difficult start to the season, so you really can't afford to go into those first couple games going away to Man United, going away to Anfield, going away to Newcastle and playing City with the same attacking group that you had last summer. So it's a lot, it really is. But teams that really want to buy players are moving on buying those players. The Eze thing is stalled enough for me to think that we need to sell. And if we need to sell, then we're in trouble. So again, I feel like the first Eze kind of information came in the first Sunday that we got the Gyokeres news for that's where we were going. Where I think Ornstein had said like Arsenal are in advanced negotiations with Sporting. That was when we first got the first Eze news. That was like 3 weeks ago. I want to say that was 4th of July weekend because I was at my parents' house. So it's the 21st and the link is getting fainter and fainter and fainter. We need to sell. Like that's all it is. And we haven't even gotten the striker through the door. So it's just it's wild at this point. But Arteta did say in his press conference that they had asked him, what about Gyokeres? And he said, I'm not going to talk about players that are not a part of our group yet. And so him saying not a part of our group yet makes me think that he is kind of confirming the signing, because yet is like, okay, he's going to, whatever, like he's going to come in. And I don't think anybody genuinely feels like he's never going to come in. It's just whether or not it's going to be at a good time or we're going to the final day and then we finally fold. Because that's my thing as well. If we're going to fold, we might as well fold now. If we're just going to go ahead and give them what they want, like these breakdowns that are coming out of what these add-ons are, to me is just very like, as a fan, I don't really want to know much about this. I don't even want to I don't want to know that Sporting want 2.5 broken down this way. As a fan, like those are things that I was like, just get the signing done. If you're going to fold Arsenal, just fold now. Don't wait. Because if we end up just giving them what they want, but the season has already started, then what? So yeah, Sandil says, I'm not even excited for the season. I mean, listen, I can't tell you how to feel. I feel I am less excited than I was maybe like 2 weeks ago, but that's because all of our signings have dragged. And now there's no the type of signings that are going to get you excited are either dragging or they're nowhere to be found. I'm sorry. I'm finding it really difficult to get excited about Nani Madueke as one of our main attacking signings. And as excited as I am about Zuby, it's just not enough. You just know that we're not gonna have enough quality in the areas that we needed to really we quite literally just needed 2 or 3 attackers. 2 or 3 attackers, like, that's kind of all we needed, and we found a way to make that incredibly difficult, in this window. So, I understand not being excited. I personally am not really feeling, like, ready to watch Arsenal. I know some people are like, "I can't wait to watch Arsenal." I could wait a couple more months if I'm honest, but the show must go on. Arsenal are gonna be in a situation where, you know, we're gonna be up against it, and I'm just not quite sure that we have the level of quality that we need. The way that our rivals are improving, I'm not sure we're gonna have the type of quality needed. Havertz bulking up is not gonna change anything for us. Like, he's still gonna be the same player that he always has been. Evan says Liverpool have signed Ekitike quicker than us with Gyokeres, but that's because they were willing to pay for convenience, Evans. Like, when you are a big club and you trust your scouting, you'll be willing to spend a little bit more just to get the player in quick, to just end speculation, to end delay. In life, you do the same thing. If you want things quicker, you pay a little bit more. Like when you're shopping online and they start showing you the shipping and you're like, I really want this in a little bit earlier. So I'm just going to pay that extra $11 or 11 pound or wherever you're from, 11 pound, $11 to make sure that it gets here a lot sooner. Big teams pay for convenience, and it's not because they also, I feel like, trust their scouting department and know that the player is going to bang. I think teams that are not quite sure about their scouting tend to do what we do. We're hemming and hawing over small numbers. We also don't have good owners that are going to, release funds for us to like really push the way that we should, meaning not just the amount, but the amount that they're willing to spend up front, which I feel like those are two completely different things. Arsenal never really have enough money up front. They have enough money overall. They'll sanction a certain amount of money that can be amortized or whatever the word is over a certain amount of years. But we're never going to have the type of money up front that'll allow us to get better players over the line, because other teams will want us to pay more up front. So Liverpool have paid for convenience. We all know that Ekitike is not worth almost 100 million. We know that, but they've paid probably I would say they've probably overpaid by about 10 million, on this player. He's never had a French call up, anything like that. Like he's not the type of player that should be going for these numbers, but they trust their scouting department enough where they're like, this player is probably going to be really good for us. So let's just pay an extra however much to just get Frankfurt out off our ass. And we can just have the player because preseason is starting tomorrow. But Arsenal are not like that. They're getting showed levels by other teams, quite frankly. Man City, Chelsea, and Liverpool have moved way more serious than we have in the window, whether that's from how much money that they're using, how they operate in their deals, how many types of players they're bringing in. Like, it's wild, but some people are like, well, we signed Nani. What are you upset about? It's like, well, Nani is just not a player that I can force myself to be excited about. We gave him a lifeline, because he was being pushed aside by Chelsea. We overpaid, to be honest, and he doesn't solve any of our problems. Not on the left. He's a right winger, so I don't know. If we don't win anything, Arteta gets sacked. I don't know if he does get sacked, though. I think fans will be disappointed in him, but I don't think the club is anywhere near the point where they want to sack him. So who are we bringing in? Gyokeres and Eze or Xavi Simons? Is that enough to compete? Well, Xavi Simons is going to Chelsea, so that's starting to develop now. Which my thing with when they linked us to Xavi Simons, it never really bothered me that much because I was like, well, we know our number one option is Eze. And so if Chelsea actually go for Xavi Simons, then that means that once again, we have a free run at Eze. My issue was never about the Chelsea of it all, really. It was more It's more, okay, so even if they go to get Simmons, do we have the money to go get Eze? That's my question. My question right now is, do we have money to get Eze? That's my question, you know? Because if we don't, then stop pretending like you're gonna go get him. Stop drip feeding it. Stop acting like we're waiting until the end of the window to sell. Either have the money or you don't. And this is where good owners come in, because the Cronkies should be releasing that money for us to be able to get Eze, and then we sell and then give the money back through sales and do it that way. But with the Cronkies, you have to sell first. And if you have to sell first, then it's so, like, when you have the Sambies and, the Zinchenko's and players that people just don't want, it makes it so hard to buy. Like, it just does. I genuinely do not think that we have the money to get Eze, because otherwise we would have already moved. It's been 3 weeks since we first been talking to his agent. You know, it should not take this, but they'll need to sell. That's what's taking so long. Yes, we'll get Eze, as Arteta claimed that the squad is still thin. Arteta claimed the squad was thin last summer. That's my thing, is him saying that is not necessarily like a promise that we're going to get more players. It's an undisputable fact that all of us know, that we knew last summer as well. That's the thing, is once you admit that you know something like that, but then you continue on and then don't bring in players and allow our season to derail the way it did last summer, I no longer trust that just because you understand that we need these things, that it's a certainty that you're going to get them. Right. And so I get what you're saying. Like, Arteta said, we need more players. And he did. He said, we're short by numbers. But do I actually believe that we're going to go out there and make it happen? It's, I don't know. Our Arsenal just don't seem to have the capacity to get enough players, in one window, quality wise, number wise, whatever. Brad Pitt fan says, I'm not afraid of Arsenal. I expect much more from Arsenal in the transfer market. Okay. I think he says that because there's not a sync between what he wants and what the Cronkies are willing to do. And that's the thing as well, is Arteta has constantly kind of done that. Where, not really constantly, but over like the last couple of windows, he's made it really clear that we're not signing, enough players. We don't have enough quality or numbers or whatever. And those reports coming out and saying that the Cronkies were not going to give that much, but Arteta has convinced them to. I'm like, if this is what convincing, what, like, it's yet to be seen, but I'm wondering how much convincing is needed to be done. Is the convincing, we just need to see. We just need to see, because I would imagine that if you've convinced them, then you've convinced them to give you the money for Eze, right? So we should be moving on to Eze soon. But if we're still stalled here, then I'm going to assume that the money was even less than what we're looking at right now, which we know is not that much. It's not enough to get a striker and an attacking mid and a left winger, a winger easily, which it should be. But at the same time, he said that they are the best owners and so on when he signed the contract. So he'd be talking out of both sides of his mouth. Samuel says, it might be true, Jess. We've seen what they've done to Arsenal. I honestly just don't. We have to just wait and see, because Arsenal set the standards really high, and then all of a sudden they drop down really quickly. Like, just a couple of weeks ago, they were saying, we're definitely getting a left wing and Eze is coming in for 810. Now they're saying, well, we need to sell for a left wing, but you're still going to get Eze. Now the Eze links have dried up, or at least movement on Eze has dried up. And so I don't know how much Arteta has convinced them to do. I genuinely don't. The man said to maximize every window, but look at the last 2 or 3 windows. I'm not buying this whole Arteta is doing well in spite of Kroenke. But surely, as the sporting director, Berta shouldn't just give Arteta what player he wants. I was hoping Arteta would specify a profile and Berta would recommend the player of his choice. I mean, listen, I don't know what the conversations are, but the reality is if Berta was not here, we'd be trying to get Ollie Watkins. So he is bringing some of his own, like, you know, flavor to the table, if that makes sense, so, he may not be taking Arteta's profile and then getting whoever he wants, but he is making sure that we don't end up with Ollie Watkins because Gyokeres wasn't even on the list until Berta came, which I think is actually very strange that we were gonna go from Sesko to Ollie Watkins, which is kind of what we always end up doing, it's under the old regime, it would go from, and no offense to these players, because I do like these players. You guys know I love Trossard, but we went from Mudryk and Caicedo to Jorginho and Trossard, which that's to me identical from going to Sesko to Ollie Watkins. If Berta was not here, we would not be going for Gyökeres, and maybe that's a little bit of why it's taking so long, is because maybe the hierarchy have looked at the data and don't believe in Gyökeres as much as Berta does, and so they're hemming and hawing over these last couple add-ons with Sporting instead of just making it easily go through. And then maybe that question earlier about if it was Sesko, would we have the player already? Maybe so, so yeah, it's just there's definitely red flags going off in my head about the rest of this window because, you know, going on tour in general without any new attackers, regardless of the context, is not a positive thing. It's just not, no matter what the context is around why those players are not here. And we've been in negotiations for Gyökeres for a very long time, not even like the regular, like advanced negotiations for so long now. And it's over add-ons. And it's like, if Arsenal really wanted to get the player done, they would. Like it would be done. They just give Sporting whatever they wanted, let them act like they overrun us, and we have the player. Arsenal are holding on for some reason. I'm not quite sure why that is, but they're only making it more difficult, with the season coming up. But this also goes into the club having like almost like this background of confidence in Havertz that they don't feel like it's that big of a deal if we don't get Gyökeres in early, and that's why we don't win shit. Let's see. Edu is the worst. I can't believe he stayed here so long. The player wants to play for the club. Just get the deal done. I mean, both Eze and Gyökeres really want to come to Arsenal, and I don't know if Eze is going to get his move. Gyökeres will eventually get his move, but it's just taking really long time. And I think the club feel confident enough for Arteta to say he's not a part of our group yet, but how long are we going to have to wait? It's just insane to me. I've never seen a club like this in my life. No other big clubs act like this. But yeah. Hold on real quick. Give me 2 seconds. I'm just checking something real quick. But yeah. Yeah, I don't know, guys. This is just kind of like an open forum. Arteta said, can't talk about a player until they're a part of the group yet, which kind of feels like a sign. Arteta's very intentional about what he says in his press conferences, and he really tries to, I think, make sure that he doesn't say anything that's going to get him caught up. So I feel like that's a little bit of a sign. And then he also said that we are, short in numbers. So he's, I think, at least probing to try to get the club to bring in more signings. But like we already said, it doesn't feel like there's that much of a desperation to get that done. I don't actually believe, I guess what I'm saying is I don't believe Arsenal. Like, I don't believe this whole unprecedented summer. I don't believe it, because they don't move like it. If we were really moving like Liverpool moving or Chelsea, I would understand, but we're not moving like that. So I don't know. Darwin is better than Ekatike. No, he's not. Yeah, Arteta doesn't talk like Thomas Frank, Simmons, and Palmer. So what are top Gooners going to say when Chelsea finish above us? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Right now, it's not looking good. And to me, it's like, okay, I don't know what's going to pan out in the season, but what I will say is that again, our rivals have been able to bring in multiple attackers in one window and it not be like some like really difficult thing to do. Liverpool have gotten, almost like two really high level transfers done in a very short amount of time. They got Wirtz done for over 100 million and they got Ekatike done in like 3-4 days. But we're still waiting and we're still waiting on Gyokeres, and they spent stupid money on Madueke. Now they need to sell. Like, it's just wild. It's really just wild. And this will be Chelsea's fourth attacker. And I know that they haven't, it's not like every single one is like 100 million, but we could never buy 4 attackers in one window. Like, we could actually never do it ever. It'll be interesting to see the type of attackers we sign once Arteta is gone. I imagine Berta to be more old school and not rely on data more than the actual scouting. It won't really matter though, Saida, if Tim Lewis and Garlic are still there pulling the strings. They're the ones that actually stop things from happening. They're the ones that sit there and comb through the numbers and look at the data. And even though they're not football people whatsoever, so they have no idea what these players are like, they're like, yeah, but the data says that if you buy a player over this age and they come from this league, that there's a 60% chance that they'll fail. So we can't spend more money than that, So any manager that comes in that's under Tim Lewis and Garlic like that is going to struggle, but hopefully you'll at least bring in a manager that's not obsessed with Chelsea players, because Arteta is obsessed with Chelsea players, so much so that he was talking about it in a press conference. And I was like, just please shut your mouth. Like, I don't want to hear this. Let's see. Jess, if the club leaves us short again, do we pin the end of the season results on the club or Arteta? We almost never come out of a transfer window and say we have everything we need. I mean, I don't know. I feel like at a certain stage, like, you just need something different. Whether, because at a certain point, it's like no matter how the transfer window is gone or what the circumstances were around the season and why we didn't win, the reality is you didn't win, so you've changed the sporting director, you've changed the players. The only thing you haven't changed is the manager. And so I would imagine that just in my, like, the way that I would think about it is like, we may not be able to blame it on one thing, but one thing we know is we haven't changed you and the results haven't changed. So maybe we need to change you out, so because he has a completely new team now. There's not a single player that existed outside of like Saliba, Saka, and Martinelli that existed before, he became manager at Arsenal. So, you have a whole new team, so yeah. Why are we acting like it's doomsday? Gosh, I think, again, like, if you're somebody that operates under the assumption that everything is going to be fine and Arsenal are just going to, run off into the sunset and win things, then that's fair enough. But I think there's a genuine reason to be a little bit disappointed by where we are in the window. And I don't think we need to feel like we need to be like gaslit into this faux positivity when we've been waiting for Gyokeres for almost a month now. There's Nani Madueke is the attacker that we signed. What are we meant to be excited about? I guess that's what I'm asking, is like, you can't even have a genuine conversation with any level of disappointment because people are always like, what are you upset about? It's like, well, then go be happy somewhere else. Like, I don't know what to tell you, but there's just never a time where you can be disappointed. You have to always be excited. This is going to be the season where everybody will improve and we will struggle if we're not keeping up. This is it. This is going to be the one. I don't think this season is going to be like past seasons where 4 or 5 teams are going to be poor. Tane says, you act like we're going to be 8th, you doomer. I'm not acting like we're going to be 8th. I never said that once. I actually said on one of my last shows, I think it was with Diluted, that I'm actually not worried about us finishing outside of the top 4. I said that on one of my most recent shows. I said, I don't think we're going to finish outside of Champions League spots. That's what I said. Champions League spots. I just am not sure that we're going to win anything significant. So I will gladly take your apology whenever you're ready to get it. Disappointment for disappointment police. Yes, eighth is a possibility. Mikel has already achieved it twice. Fans have every right to question why it's taking so long for a bloody player. So some want to hear unicorns still exist, for fuck's sake. I literally said in a recent show that I'm not worried about us finishing in the top 5 as it is. I actually am just not sure we're going to actually win anything. And I don't actually think that there's a reason why I need to pretend like I think we're going to win the league when we literally cannot get the striker over the line. You guys cannot gaslight me about Nani. Nani is not the type of player that's going to take us to the next level. If we can get him to a level where he's good, and consistent, that would be great. But he's just not somebody that's going to all of a sudden become the best player, because that's what we needed. Remember, we said that we needed like a Rodrigo, a level raiser. People are acting like he's a level raiser because we signed him. It's like every time we sign a player, that doesn't mean that player is good enough. Sometimes the players that we buy are sideways moves. He's a sideways move. It's okay to say that. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Eze and Gyokeres are non-negotiables going into next season. Well, whenever we end up getting Gyokeres over the line, that'll be great. But the Eze thing, it's gone quiet. It's really gone quiet. I don't know if they used us to get the Xavi Simmons deal done quicker, but Fabrizio literally just said Gyokeres and outgoings is our priority. He didn't even mention Eze. That's a red flag. That is a huge red flag that if we have to sell first in order to get Eze, my alarm bells are starting to ring because there's nobody knocking our door down for anybody. When's the last time you heard about one of our players being somebody being interested in one of our players? It's been weeks, seriously interested. I really haven't even heard of any, really. The Turkish reports were far of the mark, apparently. Like, they weren't really interested in Trossard like that. I don't know. Liverpool won the league at a canter. Who did they sign last summer? Some of this negativity is forced respectfully. Okay. All right. You actually think that we'll win the league without buying the players that we need to, because Liverpool did it against a bad Arsenal and a bad Man City, and a bad United wasn't anywhere near it. Bad Spurs wasn't anywhere near it. Are we not Liverpool literally won the league, not just because they were good, but because everybody else was bad. But okay. You guys live in a completely different stratosphere, I guess, than I don't know where we get this idea that we're just going to walk up and win everything without the actual good players. I don't actually get it. We actually need so much more. As far as I'm concerned, we haven't signed an attacker yet. We need Gyokeres to come in, and we need at least one more. And even at that, I'm still not sure that I believe that we're much better than Liverpool or City or even Chelsea at this stage now. I'm getting worried that they're going right up in front of us. It's crazy. Bo Johansson says, how about we start a GoFundMe, true fan power? I'm not doing shit. I would love to be able to give Arsenal the money to get this done, but they have more than enough money. When they have articles coming out about how the Cronkies are the richest owners in America or the world or wherever the fuck it is, whatever it was, richest owners, I'm not giving nothing. I'm not giving anything, so I don't need to give you guys anything. You have the money. You just don't want to get it. Some fans are in for a shock when we go trophyless again. They will also be the ones begging for Arteta to stay. I think he should walk if we don't win, just to prove some of our fans wrong. I mean, I would love for the manager just to change so we can get a different vibe going on. I just feel like it's gone stale. And I don't actually believe that all the players will leave if he leaves. I think that's just a fear monger tactic from people that don't want to hear, maybe that people are over the manager, but something will need to change. But I think it's copium. I really do think that we need at least 2 attackers, in outside of Nani. And even at that, we've stood still just long enough for even what we do in this window maybe not to be enough. Our only saving grace is that we have the best defense in the league, but that attack still just does not seem like enough still to me. But player got play Liverpool and City are only better on Salah and De Bruyne if all fit. So what are we doing here? I don't know what this means. Player got play Liverpool and City are only better on Salah and De Bruyne if all fit. So what are we doing here? Um, I don't know. If you guys think that our team is the exact same as City and Liverpool's and we're we're in the same category and we don't need signings and it's fine, then fair enough, you know. All right. We don't need anything. Great. All right. Jojo Rabbit says problem with Arsenal isn't fringe players, it's core that's not good enough. Your Saka's, Odegaard's, Rice ain't it. I don't actually agree with that, like anywhere in any way, shape, or form. It's not about fringe players either. It's actually Havertz and Martinelli are not anywhere near Rice and Odegaard and Saka's position. So sorry, it's actually those two that are keeping us from getting where we want to go. The outgoings part is going to be hard. Look at the wages of some of these players. I don't actually see any outgoing information. And Reece Nelson, the first thing that they're offering is a loan is crazy. I'm like, loans are not going to help us. Like even AC Milan, who were kind of interested in Zinchenko, were only interested in him until the wages for Zinchenko became a problem. And then now they're going for a Stupinian. I haven't heard anything about Zinchenko in months now. Like it's crazy. He was only like, remember when the window first opened? That was like what, early June? That was pretty much like the beginning of Zinchenko, and like now we're fully in preseason and he's still here. So I don't know like what's going on, but let's see. Let's see. Main guys can carry the shit players, but Saka, Odegaard, and Rice ain't it. Arsenal need genuine quality. No, you're smoking high grade there. Let's be real. I get it that I don't know what fan base you're from. I don't know. I don't think you're not an Arsenal fan. So you're probably like a Chelsea fan or something like that. But at the end of the day, you can't have players in your team that are incredibly average. Almost every single top team doesn't have any players at that like Martinelli, Havertz level, but the rest of the players are on Rice and Saka's level. So no. But I noticed that there's been constant conversations around Saka and Declan Rice in this window, and a certain fan base is like obsessed with them. And so now there's like a narrative going around about how they're just not that good and all this kind of stuff. I'm sorry, but we haven't touched our attack in like a million years. So that's pretty much the main issue. Outgoing sales become the narrative for the third July straight. It's always a narrative, and I'm not quite sure. Yeah, you're not an Arsenal fan, and that's clear. You're in here trolling. So I think you're a Chelsea fan, because Chelsea fans are like deeply obsessed with Saka and Rice, to the fact that they may need mental, help trying to figure that out. Because I've never been obsessed with a rival fan or a rival player like you guys are with Saka and Rice. It's weird. But outgoings are becoming the narrative again. But that's again because the Cronkies don't give enough money so that if we don't sell enough, it's fine. Like they give us just enough to just maybe just about get it done, and it's just, you can't win that way, you can't win that way. So, and I guess the wages have also been a problem selling our players. So I'm not quite sure what we're going to do about that. But again, if we need to sell to get Eze, we're in trouble. We're in trouble. I just don't see anybody knocking down the door for Trossard or Zinchenko or any of these players. Do you guys have a problem with the order we buy players if we end up getting the same players anyway? Um, um, I don't know. I think the problem is, Valeria, is that it's never really been the case in which we just get the same players anyway. It's usually something ends up not happening. So we buy a player that we don't need, and then everybody bitches, and then they say well, do you actually care what order it's in if we get all those same players? And then somehow we don't actually get that player, um, that other player, and then it just disappears and the conversation just ends from there. Um, so that's interesting that, you know, like the summer window that we got Havertz, and then people were bitching about, well, why don't we go get Kudus? Or I think Javi Simmons was also a player that we were looking at. And then it was like, yeah, but it doesn't matter. Like, because then that whole like, well, the order in which you do things, it doesn't mean priority. But then we never got Kudus because he waited and we couldn't sell. So I don't actually think there's ever been a time where we got those players anyway. There's always been something that's ended up not happening. Just don't understand your view on Kai. He is a good player. Please explain. My view on him is that he's somehow become a player that to me is emblematic of the Arteta like uh era. He's like he's serviceable and he's better than he was at Chelsea, just about, but he's just not the type of player that's taking us forward. And we've bought players during this time with Mikel that make us different, but not necessarily that much better. And yes, there was one short period of time where we played some really good football with him in the team, but you can even call that like a purple patch. It's just I've never seen a player be so overrated, you know, at Arsenal. And if you've been around long enough, then I feel like if you've been around not long enough, you've seen players in those attacking positions for Arsenal that are like elite, world class, top level. And he doesn't even scratch that. But for some reason, we've convinced ourselves as a fan base that this is good enough. So yeah, I don't know. I don't understand the the thing with this guy. I just don't get it. He's not somebody that makes us that much better. Like to the point where people are saying Gyokeres doesn't start over him, very much so reads like, I don't know, like we've convinced ourselves further that this guy is something else. I don't get it. Jado says Odegaard and Rice grossly underperformed in their positions last season, not Kai. Yeah, well, what about the season before that? Kai only played good when we got to center forward. Rice had he was almost our player of the season. He came straight in and performed, and Odegaard was our player of the season. So what? So what? Also, Odegaard's had 3 good seasons with Arsenal. He had 1 bad one. Kai Havertz has been here for 2 seasons. He hasn't had an outstanding season yet. Rice is one of the best players in the world. He's one of the best midfielders in the world. This is what I'm saying. Kai is so heavily regarded and so coveted that in order to prop him up, Arsenal fans are willing to tear our better players down in order to make him look better. And this is what I'm saying. There's just no way on this planet that you can view Kai as one of our best players. There's just no way. I'm sorry. There's an ulterior motive or something attached to it. There's no way that you would ever consider bringing down Rice or acting like he hasn't been one of our best players since he's been here, since he's touched down. He didn't need a whole season and then be moved out of the position that he was meant to be playing, because Rice also has been impacted by Kai. He has to play the position Kai was supposed to come into. And oh, by the way, has been one of our best players since then, since the moment he touched down. He never had a time where he could barely kick a ball like Kai did at the beginning of the season. This is what I don't understand. I literally will never understand it. The amount of shit that Odegaard and Martinelli in particular get in order for people to prop up Kai is just ridiculous. like, Kai's never had a season like Martinelli had when he scored the 15 non-penalty goals. Never. He never has. Like, I don't get it with this particular player. Like, he doesn't even touch any, like, the Arsenal, like, attackers that we've had in the past, he's nowhere near that. Like, to the point where there was, like, a comp going around the other day where people were like, "I can't believe that we compared Kai Havertz to Robin van Persie." And I was like, "This is what I'm saying, they're so like, they're actually sick." Like, comparing Robin van Persie, who I hate to my core, by the way, to like, Kai Havertz is just like, whatever. I don't know what Arteta's done to this fan base, but he's not the worst player I've ever seen in an Arsenal shirt, but he definitely doesn't deserve this level of a pedestal. Like, I just don't get it. But hey, if you like it, fair enough. But what I kind of will really push back on is this idea that you need to push down our better players, even if they've had poor seasons or whatever. Some of the players that are being pushed down have had like elite seasons with us. He's never had one. So no. Um, Let's see. Lauren says, I don't need to prop up Kai to know both him and Martinelli ain't good, especially as starters at Arsenal. But the difference between Martinelli and Kai, and you guys know I'm not the biggest Martinelli person, is that Martinelli had a season where he was unplayable at Arsenal. We were actually shocked at how bad he's been over the last 2 seasons because he had a season where he was like unplayable. Kai's never had a season like that. He's had seasons where he was serviceable. Like, he was good enough to score, the tap-ins and all that kind of stuff. But I know was there ever a time where he scored a goal where you were actually like, wow, like, I don't know. I've just never seen it. And I just think it's emblematic of the Arteta era. Oh, like, just serviceable, efficient, but not quite good enough, and it's just it's wild to me. I don't get it, but that's the fan base now. If you say anything about Kai, you are the worst person on the planet. And I'm just like, I just don't know where we've gotten to, but I just want us to get Gyokeres through the door and him to play, so that I feel like people need to see what a good attacker looks like, so that we can we need a hard reset. We need like a hard reset, I feel like, you know? Um, let's see. Kai makes this team better as a sub. I'd like to see him as a sub because right now he's a fucking starter. Kai went through a purple patch like Jacob Murphy, Almiron, etc. Kai is not great center forward at all, but he definitely had a better season than both Declan and Odegaard, even with injury. He may have had a better season than Odegaard this past season, but last season when Odegaard was our player of the season, Kai was not that good. And I actually think it's very strange that you're saying that Kai had a better season than Declan Rice last season. I don't know what you were watching. I really, really don't. I mean, Declan was like our player of the season last season, and the only other person that was even in the conversation was Gabriel. I actually think that's to me, that's borderline disrespectful to say that Kai Havertz had a better season than Declan Rice last season. He literally scored 2 of the best free kicks that we've seen in Arsenal history against Real Madrid, had man of the match performances against Real Madrid. And the audacity to say that Kai had a better season is a little strange. It's giving I'm willing to do whatever it takes to try to undermine the fan base and prop up a player that has not made us any better. It doesn't make any sense. Deck had 19 GA in almost 47 games. He was unplayable as the number 8. Xavi Simons is keen on Chelsea move. Fabrizio just posted. Yeah, I saw that. It's not, I guess, because I'm more of like the Eze. I said that when we said, should we go for Xavi Simons over Eze? I said kind of from the beginning that I still feel like Eze is the better choice. To me, it's not really like a big deal, but that he will go to Chelsea. I'm concerned that we don't have the money to get Eze. If we don't have the money, then it doesn't matter, Eze versus Simmons doesn't really matter. You get what I'm saying? Like, if we don't have the money to get Eze, it doesn't really matter at this stage. So it's basically Eze or nothing, just the meltdown I'll have if we don't get Eze. Well, get ready because we don't have the money. Let's see. Eze's prime proven. We're on course with 90 points under Kai, so he can't say hasn't improved. He just doesn't justify the wages, in my opinion. And that's my thing is I never said that he hasn't improved, and I never said that he was shit or anything like that. He basically went from a player that was, do you guys remember how he was when he first came in? He could barely pass to his teammates. Like, he was really like, it was banter levels when he first got here. I remember the chance that he missed against Man United. It was shocking, so he has improved since then for sure. And he definitely is much better at center forward. But we got to almost 90 points with Kai up front, but a lot of like the best performances coming out of that particular run actually came from Odegaard and Rice and Saka and Trossard, because he was also scoring out of his skin. Jorginho also played a huge role. So picking Kai Havertz out of that and being like, well, we almost won with 90 points with him. Those guys were doing the heavy lifting. They were doing a lot of like the good performances that came out of that group. Like, that was coming from those players, so can't just pinpoint, but listen, Declan Rice and Kai Havertz are not in the same category conversation or anything. You can shit on Odegaard all you want. I get it. It's a sport now. Everybody loves doing it. Whoop-de-doo. But when it comes to Rice, even comparing him to Kai in any sort of way and like propping Kai up in any sort of way feels incredibly disingenuous. Like, Rice is one of our best players. Like, Kai is not. So what? Nelly, Odegaard, and Saka carried. Kai is a great squad player for me, but not a starting striker. 90 points in spite of him, not because of him. He was a part of it. Like, he wasn't holding us back or anything like that. But what happened when we came out of that season? What was the first position that we said we needed to buy in after the 89-point season? We said we needed an upgrade on Martinelli and we needed an upgrade at center forward. So even with the 90-point season or close to 90-point season, and even though he did play well in that span, there was still a desperation to improve there. And that's what I'm saying. I'm like, there's just no way that we can like change the history or whatever. He's not a bad player. To me, I think he's serviceable as center forward. He's not good in midfield at all, but he's a serviceable player that does just enough, at center forward. And he's definitely improved since he first got here for sure, because he was really, really scary when he first got here. But beyond that, yeah, I'm going to have to bow out of the conversation. I don't think Kai is a bad player, but the signing was not the right signing. I get that too. If a top striker had all the opportunities Kai had to score, he would have scored 50 goals for the club already. He's not a center forward, and that's fine. He's not a center forward, which I think also people use as like he's not a center forward, so he's doing good for center forward. And I'm like, that's true. But a big reason why he's still playing at center forward is not just because it's two things. I think Arteta knows that he's probably not that good in midfield, because if he planned on still playing Kai in midfield, he would not have bought Marino. So they've saddled him to the center forward position because he's not really that great in midfield. And so if, you're not good enough to actually be a center forward for Arsenal because that's not your natural position, but Arteta also doesn't prioritize you playing in your natural position, then what's the point of you being here? I'm just asking the questions. Arteta failed with the Kai project. He doesn't even know his real position because he's mid in both positions. Deep down, I feel like Nani will be the same. Nani can't afford not to be this is what I'm saying about the Nani signing is the Nani signing cannot be anything other than a resounding success. It cannot even be questionable whether or not this player is making us better, or else it's a fail. It already does kind of feel like a fail because the money that we spent to get him inevitably will not be able to be used to buy a player that we really should just be going to get, which is Eze. So it already kind of feels like a fail. But I don't think Nani can afford to be anything other than a superstar. That's it. Because it cannot be the case that he just it is just a different option to Martinelli and Trossard. I think that kinda needs to be said ahead of time. Because I think the thing is, as Arsenal fans, is we like to move the goalposts. When we bring in a player like this that is a little like of a shocking signing and we're like, "Okay, well, Arteta sees something." I don't think it could be the case that Arteta sees something and then, he's kind of weird in the beginning and then halfway through the season he's better and then we're like, "Oh, it's a success." The only way it's a success is if he bangs, and the bang kinda has to be like he lifts the levels at least on the left-hand side. So, yeah, but it does look like Xavi Simons is going to Chelsea, which doesn't really surprise me at all. When I first saw the link, I was like, "Well, at least this will mean that we have once again, a free whatever it's called as a free hit or a free run at Eze, but I just don't believe Arsenal have the money, and I think that's why they're hemming and hawing, you know. But yeah, definitely he's going Chelsea. That's a good signing for them. And this will be their fourth attack signing in in this summer. But Arsenal are really struggling. So yeah. Nah, I would push even more. The only way Nani is a success is if we win at least one trophy, regardless if he bangs or not. I think that kind of makes sense, but there's also a world where I also think there's a world where he can bang, but we're still not better than Man City or Liverpool. Because I thought that there was a world where even if we had gotten Rodrigo, where it still wasn't guaranteed that we would win the league. So, I think individual success can be kind of separated from the collective success, kind of, like if he were to put up numbers or whatever, like Saka and Gyokeres banged, but we finished 1 point away from winning the league and City just nicked it past us, or, just 1 more point or 2 points or whatever. I don't know if I can blame that on Nani or saying that that was just a bad signing. I think there's some nuance there, but ultimately I do think that it needs to be more than just he's serviceable, which has kind of become our crutch or our safety blanket whenever a player comes in that's under some, we make signings at times where we just know they're good players. Like a good example of that would be like Timber. There was not a single Arsenal fan, to my knowledge, that when we got linked to Timber, that said that they were concerned at any form. Like there was no think pieces. There was no, like analysis where people were trying to convince you that this player was good. We knew we were buying a really good defender. So yeah, I think, with Nani, he's one of those, like, confusing ones, so, you know, um, it's not as clear, so they're having to convince. I just think that it's gonna have to be we're gonna have to end the season feeling like he really outperformed what we originally thought, if that makes sense. Um, so yeah, like, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe we do have to win something with him. I don't know if I can say that 100%. I think that he can have if he has a really good season and bangs and we don't win something, that the signing failed. But, that's just not how I think, though. We only have 6 left backs since Tierney left. Of course, we need more signings, to be honest. Selling players has always been in our plan. Just the only frustrating thing is that we're doing it now when we should be getting players. I mean, that's not even the frustrating thing is about us doing it now. It's the fact that we all know that there's a chance that we don't sell any of these players. It's not I don't actually like, I wouldn't mind if we were like a normal team that could sell. Like, Liverpool are knowing that they're gonna sell Luis Diaz. They know they're selling Nunez and Luis Diaz, but so they're not worried about that at all. They know those players will not be here. Can you guys say definitively that you think that Trossard and Zinchenko and Sambi and these guys will actually go? I don't think so. So it wouldn't mind like, I wouldn't mind if we needed to sell now, if I was, like, confident that we would actually sell. Many a window has gone by where, we say that we're gonna be able to sell for, we're gonna have all 100 and something million if we sell all these players, but we just don't we don't sell. They're still there. We're loaning them out for dry loans and, talking about, giving them a new contract to protect their value and stuff like that. So we could actually start selling now with there's plenty of time still left in the window. And that would not worry people if we actually sold well. But yeah, we really like with Nani, especially since if this ends up being the case where he's our only like wide attacker or any like our only other attacker outside of Gyokeres, he's got to bang. Like he kind of needs to be like the signing of the season type thing where even though Newcastle bought Alanga and Chelsea bought Gittins and whoever else came in at Liverpool that actually Noni was the best signing, it kind of needs to be at that levels. It can't be like whatever's happening with Havertz now. Not sure about Trossard. He's quality and might stay, but pretty confident that the extras will definitely leave, be it loan or buy. It might go late into the window. And that's the problem is we really I just prefer us to be able to have the type of ownership that'll allow us to have that money up front and then we sell, because again, we have no PSR issues. This is why it's like this whole we have to sell thing. It feels like bullshit to me. It feels like more just the Cronkies being tight. We have no PSR issues. We're one of the most profitable clubs, all this kind of stuff. So is there not a buffer for them to give us the money for the release clause for Eze with the idea that we will sell the likes of Jesus and Zinchenko and, Reece Nelson and all these players within the next 6 to 12 months, but they can't do that. They'll never give us the money up front. We still haven't sold Lakanga, sold one of the most impressive left backs in Serie A for 10 million, ripped Tomiyasu contract up. Yeah, we don't sell well is an understatement. We don't win trophies, so no money up front. That doesn't matter though. It's just winning trophies is not it's irrelevant when you have no PSR issues and you're one of the most profitable clubs. I mean, if you continue to act this way, you will not win trophies. Like, I don't understand what the trophies have to do with anything. The new contract to protect value is the funniest. That's where we also get these inflated wages. 100%. This whole, oh, we're protecting so and so's value. It's like, when's the last time we gave somebody a new contract, gave them new bigger wages, and then turned around and sold them for more? Who made that shit up? Like, that's never works. Do you think the money from Nani signing is affecting our other signings we're trying to do? Well, here's the thing, Jordan, and I said this when we first signed Madueke. I'm like, the way that this has happened, the amount of money that we've spent, who we've gotten him from, all this kind of stuff is essentially no matter what the ins and outs or whatever we don't know is not going to matter because ultimately what Arsenal fans will think, no matter what Arsenal say or if they ever try to bring any clarity from it, is that we bought a player that we didn't need and that stopped us from getting other players. Of course, Arsenal will spin it in a different way or make it seem like this was always the plan or, whatever. But ultimately, this is what fans are going to think. And the moment that we did this, it became like very much so like red flags, like that sound, like that red alarm, like, because I'm like, so we're giving them money and they're going to utilize that money to go get one of our targets, aren't they? And it happened. I thought it might be like Rodrigo or something, but ended up being Xavi Simons, so yeah. Like whether or not this is how Arsenal planned it, this is how Arsenal fans will feel. And this is why I said that them being kind of like, you know, oblivious or not really caring how the fans feel. This is why Arteta always ends up having to tell the Emirates to get loud. This is why the Emirates are always quiet, is because they do stuff like this and then they expect fans to be excited and they're not. Nobody's going to be excited about Nani. Stop buying Chelsea players. Stop giving them money to get our targets. Buy players that are obviously good. Stop buying projects, and you won't have to beg for fans' support. You won't, you know. But fans are going to think this regardless. They're going to think that shit regardless. Jackie says, Jess, you keep saying that we are selling because of money, whereas it's due with squad space. Charles Watts reports. They always say that. It's just squad space and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's squad space, it's money, it's this and that. They always act like we still have money left over and we just need to move on this player, and then we'll have the space. The reality is we've kind of heard this stuff, before, that we just need to sell because of squad space. It's not really that we need money. I think Arsenal do a lot of things to try to make it seem like we're not skint. And even if it is squad space, does it really here if you don't actually need the money, so you don't need to really sell that well, why can't you bring in Eze and just loan out Reece Nelson and just call it a day? That doesn't make sense to me either. I think Charles Watts can say whatever he wants. We need to sell for money. Come on. This might sound crazy, but I found not winning things easier to deal with in the banter era, but being good and still making banter era decisions infuriates me. We're not scant. Cronkies just care about cash flow, which Arsenal has always struggled with. Signing Gyokeres feels like forever. Yeah, I have no idea when that's going to get done. And to be honest, the last maybe 4 days, I've just woken up and just known it wasn't going to be done. I don't actually feel like it's not that it's not close, because we've been incredibly close for a long time. I just think it's going to really drag. It's going to drag. It doesn't have anything to do with, anything other than Sporting want to drag it out, and Arsenal aren't willing to do what it takes to buy convenience, so we're just sitting there, everybody looking stupid instead of just ending it. So yeah, that Gyokeres thing could drag all the way on to the final day, and I wouldn't be surprised, because Arsenal are very I don't know what they're doing, but they could just end this. And I wouldn't even begrudge them, because from my perspective, it would be I still think that Sporting are in the wrong, but I prefer my club to take control of a situation sometimes and just understand that you're the one who's going to suffer the most from not having this player in. They're not going to suffer at all. If you fold on the final day of the window, they're still going to be happy. So yeah, it's still dragging, man. It's gonna drag. The Gyokeres deal is dragging because the Sporting president is haggling it for payback. And I'm like I said, I don't actually think Arsenal are really in the wrong. But again, we could take control of the situation. That's all I'm saying. We could take control of the situation. To a certain extent, holding firm only looks good when, we're outside of the actual preseason. But now it's getting to the point where it's okay, how much longer are we going to do this for? Toby says, I don't even think Arteta wanted Gyokeres. I mean, it wasn't his first choice, but I don't actually think this is Arteta saying, let's hold it. I've seen people saying oh, I think Arteta is holding the Gyokeres signing up. I'm he's not even in discussions. This is Berta and Tim Lewis and them. This is not, Arteta's already sanctioned and said he wants the signing. He's not sitting back there doing the negotiations and saying hold. I get it that, Arteta's frustrating. And I do think to a certain extent, he loves Havertz so much that he'll always try to find a way to keep him involved, whatever. But I really don't think Arteta, who is in Asia right now, is sitting there in negotiations with Sporting, keeping it from going on. I really don't. He wanted Gyokeres in before preseason. So this is Tim Lewis and them. This is Tim Lewis and I just, it's the lawyers now. Funnily enough, I think Mikel is putting more pressure on Berta to get the deal done. Do you think Kroenke is okay with our biggest paid player, Havertz, being on the bench? Imagine you have a business and your best paid worker isn't providing the best value. I don't know. I um, I don't know, really. With if the Cronkies are looking at it that deep, I feel like maybe Tim Lewis knows that, but I don't know if, Stan or Josh are really sitting there like Havertz needs to play. He's our highest paid player. Um yeah, I'm not 100% sure that they're thinking about it that deeply, but I think as a rule of thumb, Arsenal, when he comes up on the last 2 years of his deal, which is coming up next summer, need to decide whether or not they want to double down on let's call it a lackluster signing that hasn't really helped us, in the ways that matter. Or if they want to move and open up that wage space to bring in a top quality player, because I know what I would do. I'm getting rid of both Jesus and Havertz next summer. Um, that's so many wages freed up, guys. That's like 600,000 pounds a week. You know, that could help us a lot. So, yeah, I'd probably be looking towards that, but do I actually think that they're sitting there and they, are thinking about Havertz and stuff? I don't really think so. Does Stan know who owns us? I think the Cronkies are part of the problem. They have a gift card to shop at Chelsea. They have probably only paid 5 million of that Kai deal. They definitely do like the way that they could split up those payments for sure, 100%. So I don't, is this a good relationship with us? No, not at all. Um, it's not good for us, but it is what it is, because it's not going to go away. I mean, Arteta basically confirmed that, you know, um, that they have lots of players and they have good quality. And so essentially, you know, Arteta confirmed that we will continue to buy from them, and they will surpass us at some point, maybe even as soon as this season, and we'll still be buying their leftovers. I mean, I cannot understand a club like we're the only club that does this. Still doesn't make sense why we should shop at Chelsea. We always getting scammed. Did we reject a bid of Jesus of 40 million for Jesus last season to Palmeiras? I don't remember that. Arteta is also a 15 million pound a season. He's becoming public enemy number one. Well, the Cronkies are the richest valuable sports club owners, to 21 billion, I believe. This is what I'm saying. Like, if they wanted to, they would. If they wanted to give us the money, they would. They'd make the money available for the Eze situation, and they're not doing it. And Berta's under the gun now because he needs to be able to sell. People are saying it's squad space, but like, if it was just squad space and we weren't really worried about the money, some of these people would be out on loan already. We wouldn't be seeing Sambi, at preseason. Do you know how crazy it is for Sambi and Reece Nelson to still be here? Like, that's crazy, so it's always about money. Seeing Jesus training video seems like he's on track to return sooner than scheduled, not reliable, but could help. Yeah, I mean, I don't have the energy to get excited about Jesus again. I really don't. I'm really looking for Arsenal to have at least 3 new attackers. Sorry, I cannot look at this group again and delude myself into thinking that it's good enough. It's enough. We're going to struggle to score goals. The X factor is not there. Get Gyokeres through the line. You need to bring in more. It's just, I cannot believe we've got to this stage again. And we have a goalkeeper, a defender, a DM, and an attacker we didn't need. Now everything is stopped. Just boom. once we get to the point where we need to bring in the players that we really only needed. It's so frustrating. We are always coming up with excuses for our club. They don't even need to lie to us anymore. The fans will lie for them. Don't get excited about Jesus. Just don't speak like he's shit like Havertz. He's not. No, it's for me, I said, like, if both of them were fit, I would choose Jesus every time. I just think Jesus is a better player, so um, you know, he's just a better player. He's just never fit, so I don't even think those two players are in the same stratosphere in terms of quality. As Jesus is light years. It's not even close. Um, with Jesus, you never know. It's the beginning of the season, so everyone is probably looking sharp. But when the game begins, then new problems. Weren't the reports saying that Mikel wanted a striker before we left for preseason? Just curious what happened with that. Well, that's what I said, Valeria. I said that on Twitter. I was just like, was expecting attackers in. It's a little bit disappointing that there's nobody in there. Nobody new. We're looking at Reece Nelson. That's crazy. The same group. If this carries on, we're going to Old Trafford with Martinelli, Havertz, and Saka. We know that's not good enough. There's not even a new attacking midfielder. And I love Zubi, don't get me wrong, but he's a DM, So, but everybody was, what's the problem? We've signed Nani and Gyokeres is basically done. And I'm like, all right, you guys, Gyokeres has been basically done for 3 weeks. Arsenal don't respect the fans in Asia. 2025, we're still talking about Jesus. What's the GA difference between Havertz and Jesus? Well, I can look it up. Remember, I'll also caveat this with, before we even do this, that before we start pretending that if Havertz has more GA than Jesus, that he's more valuable to the team. Trossard had more goals than Martinelli this past season. So, I just want to put that out there, that GA is not always the easiest way to discern what the value of a player. Really? Is that a fly? Oh my gosh. Gabriel Jesus missed this whole past season. So I guess he's been injured for like the last 2 seasons, to be honest. He missed so much. So I'm sure Havertz has more than him. I won't use the last season, but let's use the last 2 seasons in the Prem. 9 plus 15, so 10 plus 14. 24 in the Prem for Jesus in 2 seasons. Havertz has 20 plus 12. 32 versus 24 or something like that. So Kai definitely has more for sure. He has more. Man, Jesus could have been a star with us. Is the inexperience of the board and the manager to sign unwanted players? I don't know. Honestly, I don't really understand our transfer policy. I'm still confused about why we can't just seem to get attackers over the line as quickly and easily as the rest of the clubs. It just still seems like when it comes to goalkeepers and defenders and DMs, we have no problems whatsoever. But as soon as we get to attackers, it's just like, well, let's go get this Chelsea player. I've just never seen anything like it. Nobody else acts like us. You don't see City and Liverpool doing this, so we're so desperate to do it, and I'm not quite sure why that is. But if Havertz is a bench player wages or Jesus is a bench player wages, it's vastly different, but they aren't. They're going to point to aerial duels next. I mean, listen, I just think sometimes the answers are just very clear, and there's a lot of explaining needing to be done with Havertz, and I feel like the more you have to explain how a player is good or how they're valuable or whatever, the less likely that that player is actually as good as you're saying. I feel like good players don't need a lot of explanation. So, case in point, when I was watching the Arsenal Vision scouting report that had both Eze and Nani on it, there was a lot of explaining around Nani, a lot of, but if you could do this, but coulda, shoulda, wouldas, all this kind of stuff, right? Which I don't really blame them for doing, because ultimately in a scouting report, you want to try to like see the positives in a player, but there was a lot of hypotheticals and explaining away things when in reality it just wasn't that. It just was so hard to see the positives in the player because he was running into blind alleys, tackling himself, couldn't pick his head up. It was just hard to watch. As soon as they flipped it over to the Eze section, there was no explaining. It was just clear from the very first clip that he was a top player. Clear as day. And this is what I'm saying. I'm like, if you have to explain it too much, then they're probably not that good. We don't have to explain why Saka is good. It's obvious. We don't have to explain. I know sometimes Arsenal fans get into the explaining with rivals, but I just mean in general. We don't have to explain Gabriel and Saliba. We don't have to explain Declan Rice, really. It just pops off. You just see it instantly. But if you have to over-explain and you have to talk about soft factors or underlying metrics and all this, they're not that good. They're not that good. How do you rate a Madueke, Havertz, Saka attack in the league? It's very comfortably the worst in the top 6. Comfortably. Not close to Holland. City have so many options. Holland, Savinho and Doku, or Marmoush, Holland and Savinho, whatever combination that they have, it's worse than that. Ekitike, Luis Diaz / Rodrigo, whatever that ends up being, plus Salah, it's not better than that. It's not better than João Pedro, Gittins, and Pedro Neto. It's not better than Isak, Gordon, and Alanga. It's not better than it. I mean, it's questionable with the other two, with the Tottenham and the Man United, but you can make an argument that having Mbomo and Cunha is better than having Madueke and Havertz, so it's comfortably the worst in the big 6. There's nothing that Saka can do to save that attack from being the worst in the big 6. Like from a quality on paper, it's the worst, so maybe Tottenham, because the only player that I would rate out of their front 3 that would be better than ours maybe is Kudus, but I don't really rate Solanke that high. And Tell. So, yeah, comfortably the worst in the big 6. Yeah. Nani is not a backup. Please stop coping. No one in this chat can tell me which top Saka backup we could have gotten for less than 50 million. Nani isn't worth that, by the way. He's not a backup, though. Arsenal released the data article as justification for Nani signing. Jess was on point. I told you that. Arsenal, if you've been around long enough, this is why there's 2 people that I always feel like they pretty much get it right on the timeline almost every single time because they've been around for a while. And that is SV and Dan Cooks. And if you don't follow them, you should, because they're hilarious. But they've been around probably just as long as I've been around. I feel like we're about the same age. And if you've watched enough Arsenal windows, you know what the pattern is, especially under this regime in particular. There's always the start of the window. There's all these hopes and dreams there. Arsenal want to fill this position, this position, this position, this position, this position, this position. And then it starts to get murky and gets confused. And then it's like we sign a player that we shouldn't have, or, it's taking too long. And then the narrative switches. And so early on, they were saying, he's a backup. And then I was like, as soon as we actually sign him, they'll do the bait and switch. There'll be some sort of article that comes out from Gunner Blog or Charles Watts or Ornstein or somebody that says, oh, but he's actually he's actually going to be more than that, which if you use your common sense, you'd know that because he's not coming to Arsenal to sit behind Saka in a World Cup year. When we start to get to the point where we recognize that Arsenal do not tell us the truth all the time, then I think we'll be free. As a fan base, we'll be free when we don't just take every single thing that's said as truth, because we know that I don't think they're outright lying, but I think they manipulate just ever so slightly and then just switch it really quickly. And then Arsenal fans are like, oh, but I thought they said that he was a backup. It's like, no, baby. No, baby. He was not coming in to be a backup. He's gonna play like lots of games. Um, I always found it odd that Madueke would agree to become a backup for Saka in a World Cup year, especially someone like him. This is what I'm saying. Like, and they're not even clear. They're still not even being totally honest about whether or not they see him as an upgrade on Martinelli or whether he'll be a starter on the left-hand side or they're bringing him in. Like, they're still very vague about it, which makes me think that this is a vague signing. It's not clear. There's an ambiguity or a gray area here about the signing, which makes me think that he's basically just a player that they're adding to the team that has different qualities than the other people, but we needed an upgrade. And in some of our positions, yeah, you want to have, like, at this stage with our defenders, we're adding backup or cover or players that have different qualities. So, we have Ben White and Timber. That is like, we don't really need to bring in an upgrade or somebody better. We're fine there. We have like similar on the left-hand side with Calafiori and Miles Lewis Skelly. That's fine. But Arsenal in attack, they need to increase the level and then they can have different options beyond that, but they haven't upped the level yet. And so basically they're just bringing in more players that just kind of make us a little bit different, you know. Um, he definitely has different qualities than Martinelli and Trossard. He does. Like Madueke, I won't lie about that. He has some interesting qualities that would be useful to us. But is he an upgrade on Martinelli? No, not on the left. And he's definitely not an upgrade on Saka. So he's just an option that adds something different, but that's not what we needed. Um, that's not what we needed. Meanwhile, Liverpool and City actually buying proper fullbacks. I don't even care about that though, Stu at MC, because I'm not about to sit here and pretend like I think our defense is inferior to anyone else's, so they can buy Frimpong, or also Frimpong is not a proper fullback, by the way. He basically doesn't even play fullback. He's not like Reece James. Reece James is a proper fullback. Like, he is a very well-rounded, can play inverted, but he can do all the overlapping and good crosses and all that kind of stuff. Frimpong is not a proper fullback. Like, he definitely is more of an attacker. He basically plays winger for the Dutch. So I'm okay with our defense. I really don't give a fuck that Liverpool and City are buying proper fullbacks. Even Aït-Nouri, to a certain extent, is not a proper fullback. He's not really. When you look at Aït-Nouri, what you really think is you're buying somebody that can exist in almost like a midfield role. So not too much on our defense. Not too much on our defense. One thing you're not going to do is make me think that our defense is not lit. Our defense is really, to me, is doing it. Like, that's the only thing that I actually really rate in our team highly, is our defense. And we're already at the stage with our defense where it's like, in order for us to upgrade, we'd have to really go high level, picking off Nunez or whatever his name is from PSG. Our defense is not the problem. As far as I'm concerned, we are shit in high cotton when it comes to our defense. It's the attack. It is the attack, because we're not in the same position defensively. Like right now, like defense-wise, like I said, if we wanted to improve, we're talking about going to PSG and taking that Nuno Mendes. That's what we'd have to go do, But in attack, it's not even like that. We could genuinely go get, like, we don't have to get the top 1% to improve, because we haven't actually went to that next level yet. We're so lucky, by the way, that we have MLS. I'm so grateful for Ethan, but MLS 100% because he saved us. He has saved us so much because if we had not found him, we would be spending all of our time and money on another left back. And maybe it would be Hato, but we could barely get the attackers indoor. Barely, So, yeah, we're so right-sided because Saka plays on the right. It's get the ball to Saka FC at the moment. And it wasn't really like that a couple of years ago. The balance is definitely off, but if you have a conversation about it, they're just like, yeah, well, that's just whatever. But I'm like, if you think that it's okay for us, our right-hand side to be the only side that's functional, and you're surprised that other teams just flood that right-hand side and just leave everybody else open, do you guys actually think that that's okay? Like, that's so weird. I've never seen a team built like this before. It's so right side dominant. There's so many profiles missing in terms of ball carrying. There's also a slight technical deficiency in our team now. There's very little ball striking, very little dribbling ability. There's quite a bit of things missing in this group, but people are like, yeah, but it doesn't matter. We're playing on the right-hand side. That's just how we play. And it's like, no, we need to get that left-hand side going. We need to get that left-hand side going. MLS did so much on that left-hand side, and he is a special player. He is a special player, really. But ultimately, your fullback can't be the best player on your left-hand side from a technical and like footballing IQ standpoint and a threat standpoint. MLS is our most threatening player on the left-hand side. He can only do so much, so he definitely needs some help on that side. Hopefully Calafiori helps as well. But I was talking to my friend about this. I was like, how have we gotten to a stage where our like waviest players are actually our defenders? Some of our best skills and ball carrying and technical ability actually comes from our defenders. That's strange. Not like I would want them to have less, but I'd want our attack to have more, if that makes sense. Where is Dio? He will say 10 Maduekes don't make a dwarf Matoma. He'd be raging right now. When is the team playing preseason games in Singapore? The first one is on Wednesday against AC Milan. So we'll see what it's looking like, but I spent that $10 and I'm almost like, I would have spent it anyway because obviously I have to cover it, but I would be lying to you guys if I said that I was excited. There's like you get excited from new players and there's nothing there except for Zubamendi. I'm finding it really difficult to get excited about Norgard and Kepa. Maybe Mascara will be there because his supposedly it's done, but it would have been nice to have our actual attackers in. So sad that, that we don't have any of that stuff done yet. Let's see. Noni has played no more than 15 games at left wing. So remind me, where was Declan Rice playing for West Ham? Was he playing it as an advanced left center mid in their system? The reality is Arteta doesn't care what positions you played in before. His main thing is, I'm going to take you and make you into what I want you to be. Now, whether I'm successful at that or not, it is what it is. But he's not a backup. We're not getting a left wing. Like I don't want you guys like, listen, I will hold corn if all of a sudden we end up getting this left wing, but I would put good money on Gyokeres maybe being our last signing because needing to sell. It would be nice if we would be Liverpool today or City in the last decade to pay for the odds for everybody. Nani Madueke is our left wing starter. Accepted now. Stop coping. I don't even know if I believe that he's the starter 100%. I feel like maybe that'll be like a gradual thing. Martinelli is definitely, he's one of the, I don't want to say he's one of the luckiest players, but he's somebody that Arteta has constantly tried to upgrade upon. Like he tried to bring in Rafinha. He wanted Mudryk. He wanted Nico Williams, and somehow Martinelli is still most likely going to be the starter starting the season. I've never seen a player evade, like, he has like 9 lives. 9 lives. Arteta prefers buying multi-tools instead of a proper assignment, proper use tool. Got tired of it last season already. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think because I'm like, I do like players that are well-rounded. I'm not that big of a hater against like non-specialists, but I do think you need a couple of specialists, meaning everybody cannot be everything. And so, like, an example would be, um, I felt 2 players in particular were less of these ambiguous players and more of specialists in their best seasons, and those 2 players were Odegaard and Martinelli. Martinelli was a finisher in that system. He wasn't asked to do anything else. He wasn't really creating or anything like that. He was getting on the ends of moves. That's what suited him the best because he's somebody that has a good eye for goal. And when he gets into the box, he's his best self. Odegaard was much better when he was just playing the most forward role, wasn't playing this hybrid number 10/8, coming back to control tempo, but also being asked to be the sole creator. We had more specialists in the team at that time, especially in attack. So we had that mix. Gabriel Jesus and Saka were kind of like doing a lot of different things. And those 2 players had like one job, kind of like one job that they were trying to do. Granite was more of like versatile, like doing multiple things. And then Party was more of a specialist. Everybody in our midfield now and attack is a mixture. They're all doing multiple roles at once. And I think that's why Martinelli is suffering a little bit as well. He just needs to get on the ends of things. Like, he cannot be asked to do anything else. That is it. And so it's, I think you need to find that right mix. And I'm not sure that we have it. That's why I'm really hoping that we get the Gyokeres thing done at some stage, because he can do other things, but like his main job is to put the ball in the back of the net. And so you'll have a specialist center forward that you can utilize. And I think that works, that's going to work for us. Arteta kept playing at a DM at right back, even when it wasn't working. But we are led to believe a right wing at left wing is a stretch. Yeah, I think, I feel like some people need to believe he's a backup, because when we were originally like raging about it, they were the main ones saying that, we were deluded and overreacting. But I think since then, they just need to stop the cope and just, hey, like, I've been conned, once again. Once again, I don't, he's clearly not coming in just to be a backup. Everyone can't be Jordan Henderson, a jack of all trades player. Sometimes you need a specialist player like Ozil. And that's what I'm saying. I feel like the best thing is to have a mixture. I think all the best teams have mixtures. They have some players that are specialists. They do one thing, like Haaland is a specialist. He's not well-rounded. His best and pretty much only quality is putting the ball in the back of the net. I think like Shirky is a specialist for sure. He is a specialist, where maybe like Gundogan isn't as much of a specialist, so they have like a mixture of players, and that's fine. But we definitely don't have a mixture. Everybody is a jack of all trades, and we need some masters of some shit, Put all the pieces together. The manager says he's not a backup and one of the best young players. Saka is a right-wing gem. The club's announcement narrative is that he's going to play a lot, which I don't know why anybody would be surprised about that. I don't know why anybody would be shocked. I really don't, because it just never felt like he was really going to be a backup. Common sense, would say he's not. And this whole idea, like, it was just so crazy, like, seeing people, like, I know we're just talking about anything now, and that's okay, but, like, it was so crazy seeing people say, like, "Oh, you just don't get it, that we're at the level now where you have to spend 50 million on a backup. You guys just haven't gotten to the stage where you've clocked it yet, that, that's what the good teams are doing. They're spending 50 million on a backup. You guys just don't get it." Right. They were on their fucking high horse so bad, and I was just like, "I don't know why you guys are talking so confidently right now. Do you don't know your club by now? We don't spend 50 million on backups like that," So it was just so crazy, the high horse. I was like, "Yeah, I get that. That is true. Good teams, um, do spend that amount of money on options, not necessarily backups, but like they have high quality options in their team. Case in point, like somebody like City, they have the option to, when Doku is not playing well or they want to change something up, they can bring on an 80 million pound Marmouche, or something like that. So I understand that, but that's not what Arsenal are on. Arsenal, that's not who they are, baby. They're not doing that. They did not think they were going to get Rodrigo. And so they came up with this grand idea of Madueke, because Arteta always liked him at PSV and he feels like he could be a good left wing. And so they had to placate the fans a little bit because, it was flamed for a while and it was like on fire. So it's like, he's a backup, he's a backup. And then once he's announced, they're like, okay, he's actually not. So, but you have to support because he's a player now. Like, come on. Like, we've seen that before. Arteta wants to be the main character. That's why he keeps recruiting very flawed players that he can improve. He tried to make Havertz a midfielder. Now he's going to try to make Nani a left wing. Why can't he do that with just like young, talented players? I guess that would be my question, is like, why don't you go to France and bring these like young kind of like up and coming players and improve those? You don't have to get players that are damaged goods from our rivals. Sometimes it could work, but people being like, this is like Salah. I'm like, this ain't no damn Salah. This ain't no Salah. Like, this is this ain't like no Salah. Okay. We are literally buying their damaged goods and trying to make them into something special, because that's what's required up front. Remember, we needed X factor and players that can turn something out of nothing. They said that when we were knocked out by a underperforming Bayern in the Champions League 2 seasons ago. So the remit for a player like Nani Madueke coming in is that he's going to add X factor, something out of nothing, special quality, not just like an option, So I don't know why you can't do that with players from like France that you could just find randomly. Like, instead of getting Madueke, get Akliouche. He's just as talented of a prospect, but does not have Chelsea stink on him, is coming from Monaco, doesn't need any rehab or anything like that from his torrid time at the Blue Club in London. Why can't you just do that with another different young player that doesn't come from Chelsea? Weird. Get Bakayoko. I might hate Prem Proven. Those 2 words are ruining my club. Another Arteta project is Rice at left center mid, low key. Not even low key, high key. It is something that 2 things can be true at the same time. I think Rice is one of our best players, and I think he's been one of our best performers over the last 2 seasons. 100%. But if I would have known that this is how we were going to use him from the beginning, this would not have been a signing that I would have personally made. I would have done something else, right? I do think Rice is worth the price tag, but I don't think we're getting the most out of his profile. And that's my problem. It's not about the price or the fee. That type of player takes you from being just a good team to like a much better team. He's the type of player that can help you win big games and big moments, which he's shown us so many times. If we don't win those games, most of the time, it's not because of Rice. It's because probably we don't have good attackers. That's usually what it comes down to. So if I would have known that this is how we were going to utilize this talent, not in a double pivot and not as the six, this would not have been the player that I would have bought, because he is not somebody that I feel like is an all-weather left center mid, which is what we needed, because that's what we had in Granite, but we needed to upgrade on that. I'm not sure in this position, in the way that it's being used, in the way that we play it, that he's much better suited to that than Xhaka. There's still a feeling underlying that he's, in most games where we have to play against the small teams and the spaces get smaller, that he's a lot less effective than in the big games. And so while I rate this player, he's one of my favorite players, I will defend him to the ends of the earth. Get behind me, Rice, if anybody's talking shit about you. But the reality for me is that if I could go back and spend that 100 million in a different way, because Arteta was going to use him in this position and in this way, I would have done that, because that's a lot of money to pay to misprofile somebody. And I still feel like Arteta's misprofiled him. And that's how good of a player that he is that he's still considered one of the best midfielders in the world, playing in a position that doesn't feel incredibly comfy in the way that we play it. So yeah. Mikel was brought up in La Masia and played under Wenger, hence I don't get his lack of know-how towards the attack. Let's see. This whole window has been about depth with a few starters. I mean, just one starter. I mean, so far, we haven't even gotten the other one over the line. If the window ended, just considering as Kepa, Mascara, Zubi, Norgard, Madueke, and Gyokeres, how would you rate the incomings out of 10? Considering all the wider context, I mean, with Eze, it's probably about an 8. Without him, it's definitely closer to like a 5. That's how big of a signing that is. That is how big of an impact it would make for us. It's an incredibly underwhelming summer if the only upgrade in attack we get is Gyokeres. Because we just don't know what Madueke is going to be. He's too much of it's just confusion. It's just confusion at this stage. So we don't really know. So yeah, it's I don't know. It would be, because you have a backup goalkeeper that no one really gives a fuck about. You have Mascara. That's a good signing, but we have the best defense, so it is what it is. Zubi, that's a great signing. Norgard is just a backup. Very questionable attacking signing, Madueke and Gyokeres. So yeah, 5 for me without anything outside of Madueke and Gyokeres for sure. Imagine if Klopp had been backed like Slot. Yeah, that's crazy. Kema says these depth signings, bar Gyokeres, aren't going to take us anywhere. We haven't been in the last 3 seasons. That's why it's fair to rate the window low. But I'll also say that the reason why people are like, oh, the main reason why we haven't won anything in the last couple seasons is because we haven't had depth. When players have gotten injured, we haven't had the right players. And I'm like, not necessarily. One of our bigger problems is not so much that when we play Kivior, that means that all is lost, or when we have to play Marino up top, it's because we don't have, like, if we had a better attack, that attack could carry those injuries, but we don't have a good enough attack that can how it's like you just compensate for the mistakes at the back or compensate for your midfield not being as balanced. That's why you need X factor and a better attack. Everybody else's attack can carry some dodgy moments at the back, or a midfield that's not as good as it should be. Right now we have like no kind of wiggle room. If that defense is not keeping a clean sheet and that midfield is not your perfect midfield, you are going to really struggle to score goals. And it's not for a lack of, chances or opportunities or getting into good positions. We take more touches in the box than like any other team in Europe. So they're getting in position. They just don't put the ball in the back of the net, right? And so it's having Kivior play a couple games shouldn't mean that we can't win anything. And that's essentially what people are saying. Well, we had Kivior at the back, so couldn't do anything. Oh, we had to play Trossard instead of Martinelli. Oh, well, we didn't have Party for that one game. We had to play Rice in the 6th, so couldn't win anything. It's like, no, most of the time when we're not winning now, it's because our attack can't form. They can't even get a shot, against teams. Like, it's mostly that. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Let's see. Rice is the main ball carrier we have. I was thinking that Mikel would have gotten a creative midfielder and play Rice in his preferred DM position, number 6. We were talking about this earlier too. Like, I still stand on business. I feel like the main issue with Rice in the 6 is that he's also not playing at 8. Whoever plays in the 6 always has the benefit of him playing in the 8. So their lives are so much easier. When Rice plays in the 6, it's most likely that the person next to him is going to be either Havertz or Marino. And that is just like, it's not the same, So you would think that we'd get that creative midfielder, so we have a different option. So, like, let's give an example. We're playing against who usually like deep blocks us. We're playing Everton. We're playing Everton at home, and they're got every guy back, a sick Moyes deep block type of thing. Instead of just hoofing it every 5 seconds and trying to throw in crosses, it'd be really nice if we had somebody that could, pair up with Odegaard, or even if you take Odegaard off and bring in Ethan, whatever is your thing, that you have players that can break down those blocks by carrying the ball into areas that we currently can't do, and either be able to make a little cute pass or get the shot off, or even get fouled because you're actually doing that stuff, and if you can push more men forward because you have Declan Rice that can cover. Declan Rice is probably the best option at the 6 if we're trying to win a game, when we're pushing men forward. So we need somebody that's going to help us, help Saliba and Gabriel keep the ball out of the back of the net. But we don't actually have that option, because if you put Rice at the 6, the other option at left 8 is just not somebody that's worth sacrificing Rice for, if that makes sense, So that's why like an Eze would be perfect for that, because he would be the perfect option to put at left center mid or in the 10 or whatever you want to call it, when we need to fight to score a goal and we're up against a nasty block, because he's somebody that takes shots from outside the box, can find that intricate little pass, or dribble through the lines and make them either have to let you get into the box and take the shot, or foul you to get a penalty. We don't do any of those things. And Rice doesn't really have that ability either, so, but he would be perfect to help us, like, defend those transitions. It would be interesting to see how someone like Cesc would utilize the squad. All this misprofiling of players isn't maximizing the team. When we started buying squad players, I tried to calm myself down saying we need them, but we'll eventually get game changers. Eventually now I'm getting concerned. We'll only have Zubi and Gyokeres. I mean, if Gyokeres ever gets done, it's another day gone essentially, and we've heard nothing about it. Fabrizio said after the Victor Gyokeres deal, Arsenal wants to sign a creative midfielder. I need to look at that myself and listen to that video myself, because I want to see if he said that we need to sell first, because they'll definitely take that out. But where is the striker? I just want to get Gyokeres over the line at this stage. Let's see. Well, if you need to score a goal, you need to play Odi and Eze in front of Rice or Zubi. Can't get better offensively midfield than that. I agree, Johnny. That's what I was saying. That I get that it's like, well, just take Odegaard off and just put Eze on and have Rice. But I'm like, there's actually no point in Rice being a part of the more advanced eights in a situation where we're pushing for a goal. I get that Odegaard had a bad season. I hear that. But there's even a better argument, like even outside of Odegaard, that Ethan would still be a better option because you need to add creativity. Period. You need to have players that can actually find those intricate passes and, that kind of stuff. That's just not Rice's game. That doesn't mean he's a bad player. It's just not his game. So yeah, Odie and Eze would actually be perfect, or even Ethan, to play in those advanced roles, and Declan behind them. That would be perfect, but listen, who the fuck am I? I don't know shit. I'm just, I'm just someone else, just on the internet talking shit. I don't know anything. Goyan says, if we get Victor, who would you want? Who would you start more? Wait, hold on. If we get Victor, who would you start more, Ethan or Marino? Well, I said this the other day that I think, at the current moment, Ethan is the backup to Odegaard and should be such. So if something happens to Odegaard, I don't want to see Marino there. I don't want to see Trossard there. I don't want to see Kai there. It needs to be Ethan. Now on the left, at this current moment, Marino is the next man up if Rice doesn't play. But if you get Eze, then he moves down a peg. So he's the third option in those positions. Now up front, if you're talking about the striker situation, I think Kai Havertz will be preferred at center forward over Marino, if I'm honest. And so I think he'll play. So I don't really think it matters what I think, but I don't really care what's beyond Victor Gyokeres. He's the starter, and whoever wants to be the backup can do that. But if I'm honest, I genuinely just do not see Arteta preferring Marino as the backup for obvious reasons. We have no ambition. We have the most confusing owners in the history of team management. Let's see. Rice isn't a good passer of the ball to be playing from 8. I don't even know if it's not a good passer from the 8 position. I just think that in certain circumstances, he's less effective in that position. One of the reasons for that is because he doesn't have that intricate touch or those intricate passes. But unlike, let's say 60% of the games, he's ideal for that scenario because the spaces are bigger. And to me, he's the perfect option there when the spaces are bigger, even in Champions League, because in Champions League, we don't play against deep blocks, right? That's why he looks so good, against PSG, against Real Madrid, against PSV, teams like that. The spaces were bigger. When the spaces get more condensed, you need to be able to be more cute, just like if the spaces get smaller, you'll want somebody like Eze versus Rice. If we're desperate for a goal, you might want to bring in Ethan and take Odegaard off because you're more likely to get shots off. Like Ethan is more of a goal threat. So you just need different options for different circumstances. It's really not about being good or bad or, whatever. It's just different options. I think Rice he's so good at almost everything. Maybe he's not as good of a passer as like Xhaka, because Xhaka, that was like his main thing. Like Xhaka's main quality was his passing. But other than that, I think Rice is better than him at like everything else, basically. I hope the Zubi signing forces Odegaard to play further forward and he ceases to play in the deeper role. He needs to get back to the 2022-2023 form. Yeah, I think that will happen for sure, because there's the main reason why Odegaard had to come back was because there's nobody that can control the tempo. Once our midfield changed, it was like that's the one thing that we were missing. We don't have tempo control, and that's what Zubi brings. So Odegaard doesn't have to come back and do that anymore. So he'll be able to stay in between the lines. That's our best. I think, it's obvious he's the best signing that we made, Zubi. he's gonna help us so much, but there's only so much that he can do, because once we get into the final third, we just need way more quality. But yeah, Zuby, he's so good. Um, let's see. Arguing over the difference of 3 million is crazy. Only Arsenal does this. I mean, it's Tim Lewis and Garlic and them standing there with their calculators. It's ridiculous. To be honest, I can see Sporting being a bunch of D's, and if it comes in with 80 plus million bid and accept it, who? If it's come in, who's that? I don't know who that is. Marino has no place now in the team. He does have a place in the team. He's a backup. Like, he's a squad player. He does have a place in the team. If Eze pulls up, Odegaard should watch out. Rice reminds me of Claude Makalele. Elite at what he does, and everywhere plus has GA. Yeah, and I think often, like, what we do as fans is we only focus on what players can't do, and we don't really look at what they can do. And a heavy focus, and unfortunately, a lot of Arsenal fans do this as well. They're very high focused on the like one or two things that Rice can't do. Um, but he's so good at like almost everything. Ball striking is so good. Defensively, he's really good. He has a great motor. He's very athletic. He's a good carrier of the ball. He's not a terrible passer at all. I think people over like do it with the he's not a great passer, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, he's a really, really good player. Top player, actually. Let's see. Just saw Sam Dean tweet about the lawyers in the club. Tim Lewis and lawyers are holding us back. Sporting are ridiculous, but we have some issues of our own. Did he really? Let me look. I don't see that tweet about the lawyers. Simmons keen on Chelsea move, but after club may check on RB Leipzig along with other attackers. Bid may be dependent on outgoings. Whatever. Who cares about what Chelsea are doing? You can't. Oh yeah, you guys are talking to each other. Liverpool think they're gods, but we will finish above them. I doubt that. We need to keep calling out Tim Lewis and Garlic. Arteta seemingly had to bypass them and beg the Cronkies for more funds. I'm telling you, they're sitting there right there with their calculator saying, yeah, but they're just wrong for wanting this and we want to do this instead. I just really kind of want them to I really want football people at the club. I think that's what bothers me is we have so many lawyers and not enough football people. We have robots and data and AI running our recruitment department. And then once we get beyond that, it's the freaking calculators come out. And it's just like, you need a football person that just says, you know what, Sporting are being assholes, but we need this player in, because also you have to think if this deal doesn't go through or we end up having to go in a different direction, our options are limited and nowhere near good enough. So you need to make this work. Because to me, even like if the option is to spend almost just as much on Ollie Watkins, then just give them what they want. It's not even about the overall fee. It's just these add-ons that they want to make super achievable based on appearances. And I'm just like, this is just it's getting to the stage now where it's just Arsenal should just kind of, um, decide whether or not it's more important to be right or to hold firm or to have the player, Arsenal just hired computer vision AI engineers to make data science better. Eze isn't going to play from 10, but 8 because Ethan was promised that. We need to see more of Ethan because he has the qualities of being our Palmer. Yeah, I just think Eze is going to play more on the left-hand side, left wing, left center mid. Yeah. Let's see. You said I just copied you on the tweet. Apparently it was so you copied it on Twitter then? Let's see. Did you send it to me? Yeah, I don't see anything. Did you send it to me on Twitter or where is it? Oh, they announced in Bomo. Must be nice to, like, actually announce your players, like, quickly after they actually fully sign. Because whenever we actually do get Gyokeres, they'll take 3 weeks to actually announce him. But yeah, I don't see that tweet. Oh, I just copied you on a tweet from Daily AFC. Oh, okay, hold on. Zinchenko could be more tricky to sell. A big part of his wages also, he's in London, he's happy and he's settled. He's got family here, he's got kids, 1 year left as well, and being a free agent gives him a lot more freedom, so we're not gonna sell him. They're already making that pretty obvious. We'll have Zinchenko and he'll leave on a free. I've been told by quite a few agents in the last couple of years that Arsenal, of all clubs, are really, really hot on the details and going through the paperwork. The lawyers go through it with a very fine tooth comb. Like, we need more football people at the club. Arsenal remain keen on Javi Simmons, but the signing of Victor Gyokeres and outgoings are now the priority. The Dutchman has opened doors to Chelsea with a move club to club talks expected to start, but that deal will depend on outgoings. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, but I've been telling you guys that for months now, that ever since Tim Lewis and Garlic and these guys have kind of come into the club, it's obviously like they basically protect the Kroenkes' interests, but they do that. And then that's when you get into January and you desperately need an attacker and they won't, sanction the deal for Ollie Watkins. And of course, like I don't want Ollie Watkins if we have all this time in the summer to get him. But when you're in a January window and you have no attackers available to you, you're in the latter stages of the Champions League, and just one attacker could be the difference between you winning something or not. You make it happen. And that's where the lawyers come in and they do this, oh, it's not worth it because he's 30 and blah blah blah. The only players that they're willing to overspend on are Chelsea players. That's it. When it took us 8 weeks to sign, they hold no smoke though. We just need to keep calling it out. Listen, it's not that I want us to be in, because that's the thing. It's like, then somebody will say, well, do you want us to be in financial ruin like we were before? And I'm like, where's the happy medium? And nobody wants to be in a position like we were around COVID times and like right before that, when we were like definitely in like, we were in a very bad financial situation. Well, we are now a Champions League level team that needs to win trophies. And you stood still in the last window. So, no, I'm not really trying to hear that you don't want to pay these extra add-ons for a striker that could potentially be the difference between us winning trophies or not. And that's the thing, is I don't think they think about it that way, winning trophies or not. They think about the bottom line and what their valuation of a player is, and that's it. And sometimes you pay a little bit more because for convenience, to get the player in sooner, to get the selling team off your ass, like Liverpool have done with Ekitike, but also you trust your scouts and you trust the people around you that are saying this player is going to be really good for us. And I think it possibly the fact that Arteta's not telling them to get him, and it's more like Berta, like in terms of like this is more of a Berta kind of signing, that they're a little bit less enthusiastic as they would be if they were going to be signing someone else, So yeah, crazy. No striker on the tour is ridiculous if you deep it. Hold that. Come on, man. He's not a winger. You guys are talking to each other. Crystal Palace played Eze as one of two behind their 9. He wasn't played as a 10 because Palace played mostly in a 4-3-2-1 formation. Here's the thing about Eze is I don't think people actually care about where he plays or where he plays best or what his strengths are. They just want him to take Odegaard's spot. And so they're not thinking logically. They're just thinking like, well, he's just gonna snatch Odegaard's chain, when in reality, like I don't actually think that he's a replacement or anything for Odegaard. I think that we're trying to fix the left-hand side, but let's wait on that because we haven't even signed him. We're not even doesn't even look like we're talking to Crystal Palace right now. So no real need to get into deep debates on a player that we don't even know if we're going to get or not, but you have Ethan and Odegaard on the right. To me, that's more than suitable. The left-hand side is where we actually need help, and people don't want the left-hand side to get help. They'd rather move Rice to the right-hand side and move Eze to the left or vice versa. And I'm just like, all right, okay, if that's what you want, fair enough. Arsenal is signing another left wing because Trossard is leaving. He wants a pay rise because of his age. Arsenal won't do that. Well, somebody has to actually want him. Like literally, there's no interest in any of those players. It's actually crazy. Damn, this is just so crazy. It's actually just the types of business that everybody is doing. Arsenal really need to get serious. I'm starting to get a little bit worried, and I like, I felt like we got lucky last season that everybody else was so bad because we could have a bad season without it hurting us. But I don't think we're going to have that luxury. Yeah, we're going to need much more than what we have. I know I keep saying that, but I'm just like, the business people are doing, and I can't necessarily say that our business has been better, so yeah. Odegaard will hold his spot at the beginning of the season. If he plays bad, then Eze will take his spot for sure. Sure. Okay. I'm jealous of Liverpool fans sometimes, such a serious club. Why does no one want our players, for fuck's sake? It's crazy. We can't talk to Palace. Berta is busy with Victor over the line, and then he'll go for Palace probably next week. Well, at least we probably got Chelsea off of our ass, which is a good thing because I thought personally if we had to go like head to head with Chelsea and they offered Crystal Palace more, we'd be in trouble. So hopefully, we're fine. In that regard, we have a free run, at Eze, so there really shouldn't be any problem. I don't think they see Gyokeres as a starting striker. If so, the signing would have been done. Well, here's my caveat to that is if you didn't see Gyokeres as a starter, then why would you be hemming and hawing about add-ons? The add-ons are about appearances. So in my mind, because Arsenal are cheap and they want to pay less than Sporting want, like Sporting probably are anticipating Gyokeres being our starter, so they want to get as much money possible for his appearances. If I'm Arsenal and I'm thinking he's just going to play a squad role, why would I be worried about the add-ons? We're not going to have to pay them anyway because he's not going to be a starter. That's what I'm like. He's starting. He's starting, but he's a starter. But Arsenal are more concerned about paying their valuation than anything else. Like, because if I know I'm not going to be playing this player that much, I'm not worried about the add-ons because I know that I'm not going to ever have to pay them. It's crazy. If we finally comb incoming transfers, our sales paperwork is probably 100 times worse. Well, that's the thing is we want to only pay our valuation for players and we walk away if we don't get our valuation. But then we have our valuations and we have no wiggle room on those. So we end up with players like Sambi here for 1,000,000 years. So probably Arsenal evaluate him less because he's Swedish, but Isak is still valued higher and Prem proven. It's not because he's Swedish. It's not because he's Swedish. The problem is Arsenal again, like they have like this, like I'm sure they have risk analysis. Arsenal seem like the type of club that are obsessed with but what if it fails? I want to try to get a signing in that I know for sure is not going to fail. Not necessarily about quality or anything like that, but are we going to spend money on this player and are they going to fail? Let's try to make sure that we mitigate that by, kind of, making sure that we don't buy players for too much that are older. So that's why you don't get Ollie Watkins. Let's make sure that we don't buy any more like young players from outside of the Prem anymore, because we don't want another Fabio Vieira situation. With Gyokeres, it's probably they've looked at the numbers of players that don't perform the same as they do in Portugal in other leagues. And they've probably earmarked that as a kind of like red flag for this signing to like not work. They're also probably looking at his age because he's definitely older than what we usually would go for. We're more of like a 22 to 25, 27 is pushing it. And so they have, and it may be like even like a fit thing, in terms of like, was he like the perfect signing for us? Right. And so I think those things are actually what's coming into play here, is that they've done a risk analysis and their little computer has said that, well, based on all these factors, we should only be paying about 60 million for this player max. They've went a little bit above that to try to get the deal done, but now there's these add-ons and they don't want to pay for these add-ons. They want to make them harder to achieve, which is normal. It's very abnormal for a club to get a bunch of add-ons that are super achievable. Otherwise, they would just be in the overall fee. So I do think Sporting are being a little bit ridiculous, if I'm honest. But a big team, like a serious club, would just what is it? What do we need to do to get it done? Okay, well, let's do that. And you kick rocks with open-toed shoe, and I will take the player. They would pay for a little bit of convenience, or they pay a little bit more up front, so instead of trying to break it down in like a million payments, you give them a little bit more up front so that they're happy to not get that, like, whatever fucking add-on it is, but we're going to negotiate down to the penny. And so that's what takes so much longer. Now Chelsea fans are running around the narrative of Noni is paying for Simmons. Well, that was always coming. That was always in the post. They were already making, even without the Simmons signing, that was already the joke. You're paying for our signings. You're paying like what do they say? Havertz, Noni, and Kepa has paid for Enzo or Caicedo. The reality is we're always at the butt end of a Chelsea joke, so it was already, there, We specifically wanted Eze. Chelsea can run with their silly narratives. If we need goals, I would pay for a player who can score. Jess, do you think we can ever get to sell Noni closer to the price we got him, even right now? I mean, no. Whenever we get ready to sell him, we'll sell for less. That's always what we do. Like, if we're not like, when we get ready, hopefully next summer, to sell Havertz, we'll probably get like 30 million for him, so probably not. Let's see. Who looks worse in this Gyokeres saga, Sporting or Arsenal? I think Sporting looked worse before, but now Arsenal are starting to look silly because at a certain stage, you just have to kind of say, okay, fuck it. It's the add-ons. It's not even the main chunk of like the actual overall fee. We're talking about the add-ons now. And so I think Sporting looked, to anybody that's not biased towards or against Arsenal, Sporting looked worse than us for sure. Now that it's going on, like we've been in advanced negotiations for 3 weeks now, and now we've agreed the fee, and now we're like going into these add-ons, and it's very much so based around 2.5 million pounds of add-ons. It's starting to look more like Arsenal are holding on for the sake of holding on than just like, because if, like I said before, if you're just going to cave in 2 weeks, you might as well just cave now. And that's my biggest thing, is like, if we don't actually think we're going to get them down, which I don't think we are, by the way, I think they're going to hold firm. I don't think they give a fuck. I really don't think Sporting do. They're not working with us at all. The agent and Gyokeres both had to give up something, and Arsenal had to come up for us to even get to this point. So what makes you think that they're going to like now lay down about these add-ons? if it actually comes down to it and we bet like we actually just give it to them in 2 or 3 weeks, it's not going to look good. I think Arsenal need to be almost like the bigger person and just say, you know what, fuck it. Because we're talking about a player that I wouldn't buy a player that I'm afraid to pay more for if they're performing. I would not buy a player that I'm afraid that they won't perform. So, like, or how am I going to say this? I'm happy to pay these add ons if I believe they're going to work, because yeah, I'm happy to pay that. If he plays these games, I know that even though I'm paying for him to play these games, I know he's going to score these goals. Arsenal don't want to do that, and that worries me because I'm like, so you believe he's going to do well, so why are you so like afraid to give these add-ons? Like I don't get it. Just they did the same stuff with Man United and Spurs. I don't agree with Sporting. I don't either. I just want Arsenal to pay for convenience and get over it. And get the player that we need. The only people that are going to end up hurt at the end of this, which is my overall point, is Arsenal, because they're not going to have their player in for preseason, but, because my assumption is that he's going to be in, if he does get in, for the Emirates Cup. I don't think he's going to go to Asia, if I'm honest. So I mean, he was in London for like a week and then didn't he go to Spain? So they've allowed him to kind of go on like a vacation or something. I think they're planning on him not going to Asia. And so maybe he'll do Emirates Cup. This is what Sporting do. They drag things out of the pride. They can cave and then cave later. Nani is a good player. Nothing justifies that fee. I'm wondering, have Atletico done any business with Sporting? Because I'm sure Berta would know what the deal is with them and he would understand. I'm sure he knows people as well that will have given him maybe a heads up on how this is going to go. I just think Arsenal can't really afford for this player to come in a week before the season is over, or sorry, season starts. Let's see. Jazz, question time. Does your dogs have Arsenal merch? No, they do not. I thought about buying them some stuff, but then I was like, I just can't give Arsenal my money right now. I just feel like I need to see real progress, in terms of a seriousness in this window. And so, no, they don't, but they do have little clothes, like little sweatshirts and hoodies and stuff that I bought from Amazon. But not yet. Maybe if Arsenal win a trophy or something or bring in good attackers, then I'll consider it. I'm really trying not to spend my money with Arsenal if they're not being fucking for real. Well, they gave Victor the training program for the team to do this training session with his trainer. Sometimes you have to pay to get what you need. We need to stop effing around about. I don't even know why I said F, because I say the F word all the time, sorry, and do what we need to do. Add-ons are mostly based on achievements, both individual and team. European qualifications. Sporting are just trying to frustrate the player in Arsenal for refusing to turn up for preseason. No, I get that. And here's my thing. It is abnormal what Sporting want. What Sporting want is incredibly wanting all of the add-ons to be for him making appearances is very unheard of. And I kind of do think they're just stalling it out now. I do think that they're just doing it to frustrate us. They're getting their striker signing ready and, taking their time. They're probably hard to get in touch with. They're doing all this other stuff and then going to the media and talking shit. I think they're doing a lot of that, and they're trying to frustrate us, and we're just kind of in the in-between. But I just don't think that we would be, I just don't think really big clubs would be even dealing with this. I think they'd just pay it and just be like, fuck you, So this is Bruno Fernandes, Manchester United, Manuel Ugarte. This is Sporting. This is the deals that they've been doing. Mm, oh, okay. So they haven't really dealt with Atletico, have they? Okay. Well, we'll see what happens because I'm like, at some stage, you gotta get the deal done. Jess, that's why paying the add-ons off to please Sporting. It's not I'm not saying to please Sporting though, hold that. It's not about pleasing Sporting at all. It's about we're going to lose more by him not being here than they will. So at a certain stage, of course, you hold firm. But I do think if you're going to end up caving in the end of the day, because I wouldn't be surprised if in 3 weeks they the Arsenal gave them what they wanted, then it made no sense. So we'll see how it ends, but it's not about pleasing Sporting. It's about what is the negative of what are we gaining from just holding on, besides a monetary situation, but what is the repercussions going to be for us on the pitch? And that's my thing is Arsenal's benefit in this regard is only about the Cronkies getting what they want at the bottom line, but it doesn't help what happens on the pitch. And sometimes I feel like you need to make decisions based on winning and what's going to be best for us to win on the pitch. A lot of the decisions that Arsenal makes are mostly about the numbers. And the only benefit to us holding on is that the Cronkies save a couple million, but the repercussions maybe that Gyokeres doesn't get in until too late, then maybe he's not ready to go in those first couple of games. And we need goals against City or Newcastle or Man United or Liverpool, all of those difficult games and Newcastle, and he's not ready to go. And we drop points and we get to halfway through the season and he's scoring lots of goals and we think, God, it would have been great to just have him in maybe 2 weeks earlier. That's what I'm saying. Like, but I saw people saying like on the timeline that having him in preseason is not that important. And I just thought to myself, you know what? If we're at a point now where we're just going to flat out lie and say things like, well, I don't think it's that important if he's in preseason early. It's not going to make that big of a difference. I don't think Arteta is really that fussed about him being in at preseason. Arteta said he needed to be in at preseason. Like, it's just so weird. We go from all kind of agreeing that we want our players in early for preseason so they're ready to go. Then when it doesn't happen, I don't think it's that important. It's like, all right. Jess is right. There's no strikers on the tour. That's crazy. Those add-ons Sporting are proposing are relatively easy. You can as well just pay the 10 million and forget the add-ons because add-ons are bonus payment, which is essentially what they want. They want Sporting are obsessed with getting 80 million euros. That's what they want. Right now, we're at 70 plus 10 euros. That's where we are. But they're obsessed with the number 80. So, and I think what they want is to wear us down so that they can get 10 extra million added to the fee, the actual guaranteed fee, because that's always what they've wanted. 70 million guaranteed at least, so they're pushing for that. They're obsessed. I don't know if they just want to be able to say they sold him for 80 million because that sounds good. I really don't know. But they're obsessed with that 80 million number. And I think they really want that extra 10 million almost guaranteed, So yeah. But if we're just going to give it to them anyway, we might as well give it to them now. Arsenal don't realize how much they'd make in merch sales if they sign Gyokeres. They're crazy. What's that got to do with Arteta? This is the club and Berta. Similarly to Man United taking 7 weeks to complete Mbomo deal just to cave. So I'm saying if you're going to fold anyway, you might as well just give them the money now and just call it a day, exactly just decisions that are about winning. And this is why I'm saying like just about like the lawyers thing is that lawyers are going to often make decisions based on what's going to benefit the Cronkies and their bottom line. Because Tim Lewis is their guy. He's one of their lawyers that's worked in their companies for years. So he's there to protect their interest. He's not really there for Arsenal. He's there to protect the Cronkies. And so when you have a bunch of those types of people working, they're not making decisions based on what's best for us on the pitch. The only people that are really advocating for what we need on the pitch is more like maybe Mikel and Berta. But the people that are making that final decision are more just like, yeah, but our bottom line is this. This is our bottom line, So at the end of the day, when all the decisions that you make are about making sure that the numbers line up and the math is mathing, that's not really what's best for us on the pitch. Because what's best for Arsenal is for us to get these 3 attackers that we need, 2 or 3 top attackers in before early in the window, make sure that they're ready to start, and we have a really good start to the season, because our title race could be in jeopardy after those first 10 games if we don't perform well, and they don't really seem that worried about it. So, yeah. Hi, Jess. Well done. Kudos. I always say kudos. Kudos to you. We need more footballing people up there in the decision room. We actually desperately need an owner that cares about winning. Cares about winning Premier League football, cares. When you have owners that care about winning, then it trickles down. But the trickle down effect of having an owner that doesn't care about winning has created this situation that we have now, which is all the lawyers, a manager that's young, the project, all that kind of stuff. So, here we are. To be honest, I would like us to move on Eze while this is stalling. Berta has shown he can spin multiple plates. But isn't it interesting that as soon as it's time to go for Eze, it's all just kind of went quiet? Yeah, very interesting. Very, very interesting. It's as soon as it's time to make that one signing that's going to push us over the edge, there's always something some sort of waiting or whatever. I heard that Arsenal and Sporting are making progress in negotiations now. There's a good chance to finalize the Victor Gyokeres deal in the coming days. I mean, the coming days, it should be done now, today. The coming days is crazy. Arsenal on the verge of signing Victor Gyokeres with negotiations regarding add-ons at final stages. Eberechi Eze remains a major target. He better. I'm telling you right now, if they don't get Eze, I'm going to be that irrational, negative fucking person. It's going to be so irrational. It's going to be such head loss. It's going to be she needs to touch grass. Genuinely. I'm going to need the crash out. I'm going to need to feel that level of visceral rage, and then I'll be normal again. But I'm expecting Eze to play for Arsenal. That 10 is open for a reason. Oh, let's talk about some funny shit though, because it's been somber, so we need to talk about some other shit. But how am I going to frame this? Would you care if Gyokeres got the 14? What y'all saying? What if Gyokeres got the 14? Because let me just say this. Now that Zinni's probably not going anywhere, that 17 that I thought he might get, it's not happening. They're not ruthless enough to rip that 9 from Gabriel Jesus. What if he backs himself, guys? What if he says, I could do it? What if he says it? Seriously, we need to talk about this, because there is a genuine chance that he will get the 14. It is not, I actually could see it happening. If Eddie Nketiah is allowed, damn well they don't give a fuck. So if he says, I want to, stand on business and, step in where Thierry Henry left, what y'all gonna do? What y'all gonna do? Seriously. I mean, I would be interested to see the meltdowns, because I think they'd be funny. Because at the end of the day, of course, numbers mean stuff. And we've spoken about this before. I'm very big on numbers and their meaning and traditional numbers. And, if numbers are special, like you should probably like not try to give them to people that won't be able to live up to it. But at the end of the day, like it's not that deep. It's deep, but it's not that deep. Like it's not crash out and never watch Arsenal again deep. If he asks for the 14 and they give it to him, I'm gonna run to Twitter and just sit there and wait and just watch, because they're like, oh no, you can't have that number unless you're, it's gonna be funny. Because let's be real, what number is he really about to take? Let's keep it a buck. Gyokeres has not talked all that shit about being as good as Kane, right up at the same category as Kane and Lewandowski, Haaland, to pick up the 30. He didn't wait all this time and give away his money and throw away his girlfriend for 30, has he? He's gonna take the 14. He's gonna take the 14. I could feel it in my bones. He's taking the 14. Is so funny. No new thing, crash out as a 10, Gyokeres 14. It makes sense, kind of, doesn't it? Or no? Like, would it be that bad? He said no at 4 teams that are ready to offer more. He's coming in as to be a top gun. Give him the 14. We give him 14. We give 14 to Gyokeres. Gyokeres needs to bang minimum 35 goals. 14 was Thierry Henry, but Nketiah wore it when he was at Arsenal. But I said as well that 14 is not just a number for a player of color. It's for a player that can live up to the stress and like pressure of a number that was made famous by our best ever player. So it's not just like you could just give it to anybody. Like that player also, even if they needs to also be able to step into that number, and they weren't able to do, like Eddie wasn't nowhere near that. So I'm telling you, he's going to go right over there and he's going to say, I want that 14. Like, you know what? At this stage, what can we do? Like, come on. It was disrespectful to give it to Eddie. Listen, I was in shock. I was like, not only are you guys giving him a new deal and giving him more money, but now you want to give him 14? Huh? Like, it was crazy. Like, Eddie was one of Arteta's initial projects. Eddie Nketiah was one of Arteta's first I can save him projects. He was at Arsenal, but he was on the outs already. He was on loan at Leeds on the train to, to out of the club. And Arteta reeled him back in, dusted him off and said, I'm going to make you into something. We're going to give you £100,000 a week. We're going to give you the 14 and I'm going to make you special. Crazy. That January in 2022, 2023 was why. Let's see, since Galas 10, that's when I knew numbers started to mean nothing at this club. This is the second time I've watched you. I love your commentary. I'm a genuine Arsenal fan. I suffer when they do not do well. I do not think I can cope for more failure this year. Well, I'm glad you enjoy the show. I'm not everybody's cup of tea, but listen, I think a lot of people at their wits' end, so I don't think you're in the wrong or you're not justified in feeling that way. We definitely need to start winning things. And I think a lot of people will be just so confused if we don't and disillusioned with the whole thing. So, I don't really blame you. If he gets 14, he needs to change our lives. I'm talking near Haaland levels. I mean, it's going to be a lot more pressure for sure. The world ain't ready for that celebration in the North Bank. I'd want Gyokeres to get the number 9, but Jesus won't give it up probably. The way Jesus is going to be like, here, let me get it. This is, oh, funnily enough, this isn't a 9. But this is, he's like holding on to it like, Like, you can never snatch it from him. You could never snatch it from him. He could be asleep in the on the sick table, on the sick is a sick note, and Joker's trying to snatch it from him, and he wouldn't let him. He's not letting it go. And that's why I also feel like he would not be a good player for us on the wing. I don't think he'd ever be a good player for us shifted out to the wing. The whole narrative around him coming was he was going to show that he could fight for the 9. And he's not in the 9, so right now, like, he's really struggling to like maintain his fitness and all that kind of stuff. So there's just no way that he could be on the wing for us, because I just think it would mess with his mental. He's a very emotional person, which you can see in the way that he plays. When he's emotionally in a good place, he plays amazing. But when he's not, he's very frustrating. If you stuck him out on the wing for Arsenal and he was playing behind Martinelli, ooh, baby. Like, yeah, that you would never survive that. Jesus going next summer, let him keep the 9. I think you could give the 9 to like a young player, because I think we should be in the striker market again next summer, because we should be moving on both Jesus and Havertz. And so we should be able to go get a younger striker, because also Gyokeres will be 28. And so we have to start preparing for the next step. So it should really be that simple, really. The next person gets the 9. Jesus holding on to the 9 with his dear life. Broski can't accept he's Joga Finito. He is like just white knuckling it. It's like, let it go. Let it go. It's over, How and when did you start watching Arsenal in the US? Like early 2000s, so like 2002. Yeah, like around 2002. And yeah, they were showing like just a couple games on a weekend. They would basically only show like Man United and Arsenal. And when I saw Arsenal, I just knew it was the club that I wanted to follow. It was just so obvious that it was my club. So yeah, long, long, long time ago. I may look young, but I am not. The fact that Jesus was in the leadership group seems crazy now. I can't lie. What was the moment you fell in love with the club? I don't even think it was like a particular moment. I just think that like when I first saw the team playing, I don't even remember who they were playing against, but I just remember seeing all the Black players, and I was just like, yeah, this is the team I'm going to follow. I thought Arsene was the coolest person on the planet. I was like, he doesn't even look like a coach. He looks like a scientist or something. I had like the little glasses and the little suit. He was so cool and calm and collected. And I just loved like the players instantly, like instant love the players, like just like that. And so it was just obvious, especially because like at that time when I was growing up, I was always like the only Black girl in my class or Black girl on my team. So it was strange to me to see so many Black players in one place. And oh, by the way, they're so good. So it wasn't like a particular moment, but I remember, watching one of the like Arsenal games, the first Arsenal game I ever saw. And I was like, yeah, this is it for me. I love this team. And so then I just, fell in love from there. Yeah, I loved all those players, and not just the Black players either. Like I loved Bobby Perez, loved him down. You could not tell me that that was not like one of the best wingers in the world. You could not. Like I would fight you over it. I love those players. As far as I'm concerned, their shit did not stink. Like I love them down. So, and Patty V was like, he was just the perfect midfielder. If I could have been anything, I would have wanted to be a midfielder just like him. Like he was perfect. Jess, were you 2 years old when you started watching Arsenal because you look very young? Exactly. See, no, I wasn't 2. I'm fully like a full millennial, like very full millennial. I'm fully in my 30s. So yeah, but listen, you're as young as you feel, I guess. What do you mean Mikel confirms Gyokeres signing? I'm waiting anxiously. Essentially, like during his press conference, he said that he can't speak about players that are not in our group yet. Which Arteta is extremely, I would say, intentional with his words. He's like almost like a politician. Arteta is so hard to get information from because he doesn't let anything go. So it's intentional, in my opinion, that Mikel would say yet. Usually when we talk about players that are not Arsenal players yet, or we're talking to, he will just say, I'm not going to talk about a player that's not in our group, that doesn't, play for us, that's at different clubs. Him saying yet, I think, is a good sign. We just still don't know. Like, I never for once thought that the Gyokeres deal was not happening. I'm just concerned about how long it's taking. So, and now, like, like the same things are being said, like there's been a breakthrough, it's to be happening soon. Fabrizio saying, I heard that Arsenal and Sporting are making progress in negotiations now. There's a good chance to finalize the Gyokeres deal in the coming days. So, yeah, yeah. Sam J. Dean says, I haven't heard any recent positive updates about about Eze's potential move to Arsenal. Based on what I've been told this summer, I seriously doubt this transfer happens. Oh, that's crazy. If that's really what he said, we're finished. Um, but yeah, that was Sam J. Dean. I don't When did he say this? I feel like if he actually said this, I feel like multiple people would have said that. Hold on. Let me check some other people. This could be rage bait. Oh, he did say that on the latte farm. I haven't heard anything in the past few weeks to suggest that as a transfer to Arsenal is moving in a positive direction. Everything I've been told all summer makes me doubt it will happen. That's really bad. That's actually really, really bad. If Arsenal end their summer window with just Gyökeres and Madueke, I just don't think that there's anything people can say to make people not feel like they've been gypped this summer. This summer is not unprecedented. This is a typical Arsenal window. You might get one thing that you need, so yeah, it's got to be bait. There's just no way. But that kind of aligns with what I was saying earlier with as soon as we needed to sell to buy, and they stopped because originally at the beginning of the window, Crystal Palace were saying that they would accept 3 installments. And so I was thinking, okay, that deal is much easier to do because at the 68 million release clause, we were never going to do that. We were never going to get the 68 million release clause. But I was like broken down into 3 payments, maybe we could get it done. As soon as we started probing about Eze, the narrative and the words that people are using, it sounded like they were saying that Arsenal originally wanted to do installments, but now they need to see if they can get it done. And then quickly it shifted from Arsenal are trying to talk to Eze, or they're going to approach Crystal Palace, to they need to sell. And now all the links have gone away again. If we were really going to get him, we would have started talking to them originally when we first got linked. And then we got linked to Xavi Simons, and now he's gone to Chelsea, which is usually what happens when you don't have the money. If you have to sell first and you're Arsenal, you're not getting that player. You're just not, because it just takes us too long. So we're stuck at this place. I would not blame Arsenal fans for being pissed. And there are going to be Arsenal fans that will try to do the, what are you complaining about? We got 2 strikers, or 2 attackers, whatever. But it's just not a level raising summer like it needed to be. You guys can't wait to get goalkeepers and defenders and DMs in, but you have no concept of how to build a good attack, or an attack that can actually go bar for bar with the other attacks in this league, and you will suffer. You will suffer. You will suffer. Sorry, I know I froze up for a second there. Uh, that's crazy. Am I back? Let me know if I'm back, because I know I like went out for a second. So the 300 million war chest was a lie again. If you see my shock, I never thought that we had that war chest. We never have that amount of money. As a signing would do wonders to this club. Every fan wants him here. Well, that's the thing. It's like there's been several signings over the years that if we would have done, would have made the fans feel happy, but they avoid those signings like the plague. They just cannot get good attackers. They struggle so much with attack. They're way too comfortable with what they have. That's the problem. You know, Liverpool, Chelsea, well, maybe Chelsea to a certain extent, but Liverpool and City were not under that much pressure this summer to go in and really upgrade their attack. And they both have done that. You know, Chelsea or Man City kind of did it with like Marmoush and bringing in Cherki. And then Liverpool have brought in Ekitike. They just won the league. They're bringing in Ekitike. They'll probably get Rodrigo once they sell Luis Diaz. Why is Arsenal like so they're so unable to just move on from this group of attackers and really change it up because it needs major surgery. You cannot go into next season with Havertz and Martinelli starting in the front line. You just can't. And they're going to because they're comfortable. They are too comfortable with what's going on. But the best thing that could happen next season is if we don't do what we need to do, is for it to be painfully obvious that we didn't do enough. They need to see that they haven't done enough. They need to. They need to see that they haven't done enough, meaning it's looking like it on the pitch and we're not looking like we're going to win anything because it needs to be obvious. As long as we finish second because other people are not playing as good, then they'll see. Yeah. What did Sam J. Dean say? He basically said that Eze is unlikely based on what he's been hearing. He's not the most reliable. Like Fabrizio just said that after Gyokeres, Arsenal will focus on an attacking mid. But he also said that the priority is to sell. And I feel like reading between the lines, we're not going to be able to get rid of some of the players that we thought. There's not as much interest in those players. And so if we can't sell quite a bit, there's not going to be enough money to give up front. Like 20 million up front for a club like Arsenal is a lot because we like to pay like 5 million up front. We probably don't have that much money left. So I'm not surprised. Color me surprised. Arsenal can't buy our last minute pieces. They would have done so well for themselves if they had just gotten Eze. They could have gotten Gyokeres and Eze, and I think the fans to a certain extent could accept that. But Madueke and just Gyokeres, yeah, they're fucked. Nelly is forced to play as a touchline winger, which he is not good at. That's why he hasn't been good. I think Chelsea pivoted to Xavi because Crystal Palace was playing hardball. And that's the thing, is they probably want the full release clause. And it was a bad thing that the Europa League thing fucked up because now they're going to get less money, which made me think that they probably want more to lose their best player because they'll inevitably have less money to replace him with. And so if they wanted the full release clause, then Chelsea pivoted quickly to Xavi Simons, and we probably also did not have the money for Xavi Simons because I kept asking. I was like, I don't know. It's not so much about Eze versus Xavi Simons. It's do Arsenal have any money to bring in either one of these players? I don't think they do. So that's why I'm like, oh, we're not skint. I'm like, no, as a club, we're not skint because we have rich owners. But in terms of whatever budget we have, it's gone. And we've spent almost like not all of it, but we spent a good chunk on players that, outside of Zubi don't lift the levels. It's crazy. Mikel himself said that we were short just today. Well, that's usually the indication that the Cronkies have decided not to give much money or we're at the end of the budget and he realizes that our team is not near enough. He said that last summer. We're short, we need players, and they closed the window with Raheem Sterling. Mikel says a lot of things random, but I'm impressed by how much British slang and mannerisms you have. That's because I talk to British people all day long. I feel like that's the problem is I don't it's gonna sound so weird, but I don't talk to many American people. I work from home. So when you work from home and you're like creating content all the time, I don't really talk to a lot of people. Like I talk to my parents and my friends, but like outside of that, like I don't have like so if I'm talking to you guys for like 2, 3 hours a day, and the people that I talk to when I'm working are English, and I've been doing this for 5 years, I have picked up some of the slang and I just say it like naturally. And it is weird because it's like, I know it's weird, but I just do it anyway because I'm like, I don't know what to tell you guys when you're around people and you talk to people and you pick up shit that they say. Like, I don't know what to tell you guys. Like, I'm not going to start speaking in an accent, but and fuck it, the slang is cool. Like, I like it. Like, the fuck, I like it. I think it's cool. So yeah. Um, but yeah, not cool or good news. Chelsea have a strong chance of getting at Eze or Simmons now. Now I understand why some fans wanted Dan Gotti as an owner over 10 years ago. Should we have should we be taking Lakanga, Nelson, Trossard, and Zinchenko on tour? Surely we should be pushing them to move. Um, I don't I I don't listen. I Arsenal have always taken players that they're trying to sell onto tour. So I don't know if not having them around would make it any easier. But I mean, they're already telling us that Zinchenko is probably not going to get sold. Nobody is interested in Trossard. He's probably would be our easiest person to sell. He's not because we haven't like given him a bigger wage. So his wages aren't huge. He's a good player with good experience, and like not even Saudi clubs are like really knocking the door down, So and I get that there is time, but we've heard this all before that there's all this time left, but yeah, I don't like what Sam J. Dean is saying already. I just think that that's like there should never be a point where they're telling us that we can't get Eze and it's July, you know. That's crazy. Um, yeah, let's see what happens, really. We have to see what happens at this stage. Um, I'm very concerned. Gyokeres and Zubimendi is not enough. Who has said that? Sam J. Dean said that he hasn't heard anything positive about the Eze's move to Arsenal in weeks, and that based on what he's hearing, he'd be surprised if he came to Arsenal. And I'm just reading between the lines. Fabrizio says Gyokeres then sales. I just think that basically reading between the lines is Arsenal don't have the money to get Eze, so they need to sell, or they're not gonna bring him in. There will be a lot of eye rolling this season, I bet you that. They are saying everything we don't want to hear. Odds on Kepa moving Raya out the door. Never. Sam Dean puts milk in his bowl before cereal. Don't listen to this source. I mean, it's always they're not reliable, when they say stuff that we don't want to hear. Let's see. But who has said we've run out of budget? Are they credible? They're not saying that we've run out of budget, but like Ornstein has basically like he's kind of intimated it, and so is Fabrizio, that we need to sell. If we need to sell, I'm thinking Arsenal need to sell in order to bring in these players, because if you didn't need to sell to bring in these players, then you could just bring in Eze. You have the money, but people are now saying squad space, and I'm just like, we've gone from not having enough players to now we're too bloated. Those academy players and the Sambies and these guys, they should not be keeping you, if it's just about squad space, from bringing in Eze if you have the money. It's not about squad space. We don't have the money. Like I'm telling you. I will not be gaslit into believing that we need to sell. We have the money. But Ben Jacobs said that there is an interest from Arsenal for Eze, but they are waiting for the perfect time to pounce, hence no bidding at the moment. When did he say that? That they're waiting on the right moment to pounce. The fuck does that mean? spinning plates, waiting to pounce, waiting to pull the trigger. That's so sad. I hope we get Eze. It's it's not giving what it needs to give. When Arsenal want a player, we go for it quickly. We start to get it done. We start to move. I don't know what we'd actually be waiting on with the Eze thing unless it was about money. Yeah, the last time you spoke about it was, I mean, that's like a week ago, saying Arsenal's focus is an attacking midfielder, talks will continue, and with Arsenal set to make a formal approach to Crystal Palace. Arsenal want to understand if a deal is possible away from Eze's release clause. So that was a week ago. Won't Palace not want to sell Eze if they don't have enough time to get a replacement? The longer this goes, the less I believe. The funny thing is that they'd make the money back on shirt sales with Eze. Talks advancing. Yeah, I mean, my issue was never about Xavi Simons versus Eze. It's, do you actually have the money? You've only spent about 30 million on Kepa Norgard, Mascara. Those three altogether were about 30 million. So that's not that much. It's not chump change, but that's 3 players for 30 million. You were able to negotiate with Sociedad to not have to pay the entire release clause for Zubamendi up front. Where's the money? Where is it? Let's say of the 60 million, you had to pay 20 million up front. 20 plus whatever, you're spending on Gyokeres, 60 million, and then 50 million. What is that? Like 130 million or something like that? Surely we had a bigger budget than that. 130, 160, 150. Yeah, we should definitely have more than that. If they gave us 150 and then said the rest you have to come from sales, they don't want us to win anything. 150 million in this market is nothing. Like, you need to be spending 200 million plus a window. Like, there's just no way. On a different topic, thoughts on Gabriel Heinze as a coaching staff. I didn't even know what Cuesta was doing. I thought he was the psychologist. Like, I thought he was just telling them what they should be doing and getting their spirits up and shit. Like, I didn't know what his job was, so I really don't know what Heinze is gonna bring except for yelling and screaming on the sideline. I really don't, So yeah, we'll see. Yeah, we'll see what he brings, but I know he likes to yell and scream, and he's kind of a hard ass and shit. So maybe, some but the last thing we need is somebody yelling on that sideline, because he's going to be sent off right away. Because Jason Tyndall, that's great. We like that. But Arsenal on the sideline, they got a problem with that. So Heinze brings the verticality in play from his last coaching job. He played similar to 22-23 style we played. Heinze is like that crazy PE teacher. 100 million from Champions League alone, but we still need sales. The owner's priority is clear. But they said that on like a thing came out today saying that their main thing is sustainability. They care about balancing the books and sustainability. If it was up to them, they would give less. If Arteta had to beg for more, and we're not even sure we're going to get Eze, what was the budget before this? I mean, Berta has done a really good job to make sure that the players that we're bringing in that are not major signings are cheap. Norgard, like 11 million, Mascara, 15 million, Kepa, 5 million. He's done really well to make sure that whatever budget we have, we don't have to use too much of it to pay for players that aren't going to play a big role. I think the most suspect thing is that 50 million for Nani, for sure. But equally, I would imagine that the only reason that you're dealing with Chelsea is to get a good deal in terms of, splitting up the fees, to make sure that you can only have to pay a lot up front. So if that's what you're doing, then I expect you to have money available to get someone else in. Arsenal are 100% on the edges of having a window that is going to totally turn off this fan base. I hope they know that. They cannot have thought that that was going to be good enough. They need to be okay. They need to be all the way fucking okay and get those other players in. I'm so serious. Because remember a couple weeks ago, we're talking about Rodrigo. We're not even talking about any of that anymore. We're talking about, can we even get Eze? That's crazy. The 100 million plus the Women's Champions League made the Kroenkes the richest sportsman of the year. Chelsea give favorable terms, which if you're going to mess around with Chelsea for favorable terms, then I would imagine that that's going to still free up money for you to do other things unless you're just pocketing everything. Kroenkes know they will get heat if the summer ends bad. They can't escape. Yeah, the summer windows that everybody else is having, ours just does not compare. And I wouldn't need to compare it as much as if our team was already, like we had the striker and we had good attackers and we were just adding to it. We're trying to get to like where they are and we're falling behind again. Like, it's just crazy. You think they care? The Kroenkes don't care. I'll tell you that. I told you the equivalent to Josh being handed Arsenal is like secession. I don't want this. You want to prove that you can, be useful in this family. I'm going to give you Arsenal, and Josh has been, using us and stuff and, trying to show that he can manage a sports team and shit and be the front person. But like, what is he going to do for us? Let's see. Kroenkes don't care. Arsenal isn't their most profitable business, so it's peanuts for them. We will see. Kroenkes thinks they will always get away with it. Well, what are the fans going to do? Like I remember having conversations earlier on in the window with people saying, Arsenal isn't just about winning trophies. I enjoy every moment watching Arsenal play. And so I don't really understand why you're so upset. The match day going fans don't just view Arsenal as winning and losing. It's much bigger to them. So as long as they're still buying merch and they're still buying tickets and they have their season tickets and they go there with their families, and they're never going to stop going. They're never going to stop going. Like, so nothing is going to change. And to be honest, we're not going to be able to do much to get them to sell a profitable investment. These are businessmen we're talking about. They're not going to bend to fan pressure, really. They may get rid of a coach, but they're not going to sell Arsenal because the fans don't want them there. Let's see. World Boss says, I feel like something is cooking behind the scenes. Something is just not adding up. I mean, it feels like something's cooking up for you because it doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like cooking anything up. It just feels like the natural lowering of expectations that happens every window around this time once they get to the point of we need to sell. I wish they never even told us that we were interested in Eze at all. Because I said this, I'm like, if we don't get him now, there's going to be much more negativity because you didn't get a player that we were like really interested in. So, but I'm sure some people will say we're never interested in Eze because that's always what happens. A few more comments. This is what they do. They make up links. They know the fan base will like to appease everybody. Isak, Rodrigo, Olise, Eze. Then they sign a bunch of obscure scrubs like Madueke and Havertz. And I mean, I don't necessarily disagree. Our team was meant to be Olise and Isak and Rodrigo and Eze. And their first attacker through the door was Madueke. They do this every single time because they don't want to win. And they're just in for a rude awakening. I'm like, the longer you guys do this, the more likely it is that Arsenal will struggle. Maybe not this season. This season, maybe we'll finish 4th, or something like that. Um, you know, but then it'll get even more difficult, because once the likes of like Chelsea and these types of teams get up towards the top, they don't really fall away that quickly. So then instead of it being a two-horse race, it's a three-horse, four-horse race, and then you're just hanging on for dear life. So um they'll learn their lesson. They'll learn their lesson, sooner rather than later. I'm sorry, but Havertz is a scrub doesn't sit right in my spirit. Not a scrub, but just he's not definitely not a player that we also have to like do semantics and all that. He's not he's just whatever. The player who picks the number 14 needs to have a bit of personality and swag about them, not just goals. Je ne sais quoi. Facts, you ignore your troubles now and it comes back to bite you later. Notice Saka and Saliba haven't signed. I reckon they are reacting to the club after they abandoned them in Jan, which I don't blame them. I don't want them to not sign, but if I was them, I'd be like, they see what else is going on around at other clubs. They see, Chelsea's bought 4 attackers. They see Liverpool getting Ekitike and maybe even getting Rodrigo. They see that City bought 4 players in like a week after spending 200 million in January. What we're doing right now, is like, to me, that would not be like, yeah, we're really serious. But, you have really good players that you will not ever be able to afford to replace. If you end up having to sell Saliba or Saka, you will never be able to replace them. You're not the type of club that can sell a player like that and then not end up with a Chelsea flop. There's no way, so you need to, just be serious for 5 seconds. Then the super positive Arsenal accounts will blame AFTV for the club not succeeding instead of the board, which is one of my biggest pet peeves, especially because, as annoying as AFTV content can be at times, it's not, AFTV it's an acquired taste. You either like their content or you don't. I like to pick and choose what I like to watch from there because some of the stuff I'm not super into. That being said, content creators that you don't like, that are what you would call like toxic and negative, would not have much to talk about if we just won things. Of course, they'd still have their moments of being able to be negative, but it wouldn't be constant. It's only constant because we don't win. Every year it's the same. They're calling us Netflix FC. It's really embarrassing. So, at the end of the day, Arsenal people blaming AFTV or content creators for, Arsenal not winning or the negativity around the club. It's like we would be so much happier if we just won things. That's all. We just need to win trophies. You just must. It's just going to be so much harder this season. And you can already just feel it. It's going to be much harder this season. It's not impossible, but it's hard. We're already at that place now where other teams have really improved and brought in serious talent. AFTV poisoned the fan base, in my opinion. Okay, fair enough. Why do you think we are going to finish 4th? I mean, we've been second for 3 consecutive seasons with all the injuries. Definitely there is something to look for, and we have just begun in the window. Well, listen. I just think with the signings that other people have made, I would not be surprised if we finished 4th. Is one thing I think, like, it has to be said that, both us and Man City had bad seasons, but Man City only finished like a couple points behind us despite having a really bad season. Like at one point they were outside of the top 4, like very much so outside, and they were able to claw their way back. I think with what they added, you can pretty much count them in the top 4 pretty comfortably, and probably one of the favorites for the title. Liverpool definitely favorites for the title. I would imagine that they'll fly. It's now becoming a little bit more unclear how we sit up next to Chelsea. I think they could be in for a season similar to our 22-23 season. That's what it looks like. They're looking They're looking good. They have young players. Like they're playing attractive style. They're comfortable. They look relaxed. I think that's what I would say. They look relaxed, and they've won 2 trophies in like 6 months or something like that. So, like on paper, I think most people would say that those 3 clubs are talent-wise probably the best 3. And then we're probably somewhere around the 4th. And I just don't see how we're going to, with what we have, finish above those, because then you start getting into coaching. Slot and Pep are better coaches than Mikel. You know, it's not looking good for us. But we'll see. It's between us and Liverpool, maybe Chelsea. I don't think so. I mean, I don't know why people think that City are just going to be bad forever. They had one bad season probably because they're like the opposite of us. They fell off the same season as we did, but they won everything and we didn't win anything, but we were the ones going toe to toe with them. They had like after doing a title race for like 3 years, they had that like breakdown season. We had it as well, but we didn't win anything, so we had kind of similar, situations. But in terms of like an aging squad, let's be real for like 5 seconds. Doku is what, 2024? Savinho is like what, 22? Cherki is 20. Holland is 23, 24, is he not? Tijani Reinders is 26. Foden is still really young. They brought in Ait Nuri. He's like what, 24, 25? It's not looking like an aging squad to me. Like that was their problem last season. They don't have an aging squad. So, yeah, no, I think they fixed that problem to a certain extent. Now, what the impact of not having a Kevin De Bruyne type player in your team, I mean, obviously people will project that like Cherki will be able to do those things, but we know when you see a one-of-one type player, it's just different than just adding good players. They're not able to do the same things. But one thing that City has that Arsenal don't have currently is the ability to make easy games just easy and just win them at 75%. We haven't really done that since the back end of the 23-24 season. Once they get into their mode, they're just too good to lose to teams like Crystal Palace and Fulham and shit. So we'll see, but I just feel like we need to be able to win easy games in the Prem at 75%. The easier games, they should not be fight for your life every game because we can't score a goal or we come up against a deep block. And then we need to be able to go further in those competitions. It's just a lot. The window has not closed. Why so negative? Because now the information is coming out from reports saying that it's unlikely that we'll get Eze. And we're taking really long to get Gyokeres over the line. And so, yeah, I mean, this whole idea that like once they start this, unless we're just a completely different club, and I would have to see it to believe it, they always get to this point in the window, and then all of a sudden these Sam J. Dean guys, these Charles Watts, they start to say things like, Arsenal are interested in Eze, but it's highly unlikely that they get the deal done due to the financial, intricacies of the deal. So that's why. That's one report, Jess, that's not across the board. Well, let's see. Let's see how it goes. I don't necessarily like Fabrizio saying that we're going to focus on outgoings next. I don't have very much faith that we'll get them done, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we'll go for Eze sooner rather than later. But man, if we don't get him, it's just going to be chaos. Absolute chaos. Let's see. 21, 22, 23. We have two more days until the first game of preseason. Also, just to warn you guys too, like there might be some changes like to the schedule, not this week, but next week. Because Gabby, she came on the channel not too long ago. She's actually coming to visit, so she'll be staying here. There'll still be content, but it'll be at different times. But I don't think I'm going to do watch-alongs for the games, but I am going to do like post-match and stuff like that. So, Yeah, I just wanna make sure you guys, like, know that because it may be, like, way earlier, than we have been doing. We've been kinda doing between, like, 10 like, or 6 p.m., 7 p.m. It might end up being, like, we're due shows at, like, 3 or 4, so just letting you guys know that, but we will do stuff, and I have that little pass, so I will be doing, like, post-match reviews and stuff for the games, and then, like I said, I'm working on starting to do the, post-match are usually live, and then it's usually player ratings, which we'll keep it player ratings, and then we'll do live call-ins after that. So I'm going to test that out and see how that works. So we'll do about 45 minutes for the actual player ratings, and then we'll do call-ins after that and see how that goes. Hopefully it goes well. As I said, Crystal Palace people were in NYC regarding their demotion. Negotiations may be on hold until resolved. We shall see. 3.5 hours, man, hard working out here. I mean, we're gonna get off now because I want to go eat and stuff. But I just wanted to let you guys know that just in case it's like next week, you're like, what? Like, I thought she was going live like later than that. So it might be earlier. And yeah, because we have like a whole itinerary, guys. Like, I'm so excited. We're gonna do so much stuff. So I have to be like out and about, but I definitely will still do my live. So make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel on the way out. Hopefully at some point in the future, we get a positive thing about Gyokeres. Maybe at some stage it'll get done. And then we'll see from there if they can sell and then bring in more players because they definitely need them. Like and subscribe on your way out, and we will talk tomorrow. Bye, guys.